Hello, welcome back to Drum Key. This is episode 7. Imagine that. We're getting there. Almost double digit. Episode 7 of Drum Key. This is the podcast where we talk about everything drums, drummers, and drum industry. We are recording this in our home away from home, drums, etc.
In beautiful Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
That was not a good... That was,
beautiful Lancaster,
there it is.
Pennsylvania.
Okay, beautiful Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Thank you. Beautiful Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'm Adam Steck. This is Shawn Groff. And we have a guest today, Josh Kanusky.
Hello.
He's here.
Yeah.
He's here, and he's got an incredible podcasting voice. So you will lose yourself as he tells stories and regales tales from behind the drum set. And then we're going to cut in with our obnoxious laughs and stories on our own.
Yeah, let's hear a little bit of that voice. Actually, you are correct. He does have a great podcasting radio voice.
All right.
Oh, my gosh.
Come on. I feel like this...
We need to, get him to narrate some things. So that way we can, the transitions will have just be him saying, now, between the plies.
Yeah. All right,
God,
let's jump in to crank it up, turn it down.
No one wants to hear our annoying
No, we're
voices.
just like, energy!
Yeah.
It's too much. All right, but Josh, you're a Lancaster-based drummer.
Yep.
Lancaster-based drummer.
Yeah.
A touring drummer. You've had a lot of experience playing with folks. The David Bromberg Band, which just finished the last tour.
Yes, we did. Yep.
Okay, just finished with that. But you've got the Quiet Riders, which I was checking that stuff out.
Yeah.
That's a new project you're working on?
Yep. Yeah, those guys are all Lancaster-based fellas. And, it's all
Very
original music. And, yeah, it's pretty
Awesome.
good
Yeah,
stuff.
check that out while you're listening. Put the music on in the background.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to mention, you're a vintage drum guy.
Yeah, very much so.
You dig the vintage stuff, and I don't think we've had anyone on that's been like super into that.
Okay.
So I'm excited to nerd out about some stuff with you because that we are as well. Shawn and I are as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have vintage kits. Love it. Love that vibe.
Cool.
A lot of folks think we just because we talk about new stuff. We obviously have a store that sells new stuff, but we have a huge community of drummers that bring used gear in here, and a lot of that is trading in vintage gear and that sort of thing.
Or fixing.
Or repairs, absolutely.
I've actually bought a lot of stuff from this shop, vintage, mostly cymbals, but I have a few drums that I bought from this shop. And
Yeah, you are a vintage cymbal connoisseur.
I love vintage
So do I. I love cymbals in general.
Yeah.
I said this before on a podcast a few times ago, maybe our fourth or third, it doesn't matter. That I think I like cymbals more than like getting new drums. So you get the slew of used cymbals that come through. I just can't wait to play on them and test them. It's like getting a new snare drum. I love that too, but I'll spend some time. I want to put it on a set and I want to hear them. It's some new hi hats, or especially if they're old and dirty and grimy. Like an old set of Pistes or something like that from the 70s. You're like, I gotta hear these.
Yeah. And they all have their own like characteristics.
They sure do.
Yeah.
I love it too.
Yeah, and one to the next would be the exact same cymbal from the exact same era.
Oh,
The story that cymbal's been through has changed it. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
And it's one of those things where I flip flop between appreciating when a drum company like a new cymbal comes out and they're all consistent. So if someone loses one, breaks one, I can be like, this is gonna sound like that.
Yeah.
I appreciate the consistency, but at the same time, like, especially with vintage cymbals, I actually appreciate the opposite when they're all very unique and very different.
Yeah.
So it's just a neat.
Because you never know.
You never know
what you're going to find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see something and you think you know how it's going to sound after testing so many cymbals, and then you play on it, you're like, oh, that's a little bit different.
Right.
Yeah.
Got a little bit different color splash there. So
Yeah.
cool. Well, let's jump into some segments before we talk about vintage drums the entire time. So we're going to start out with Crank It Up, Turn It Down. All right, so Crank It Up, Turn It Down. This is where we talk about controversial drum habits, if you want to say controversial. Drummers disagree about these things very loudly, it seems like, especially on social media when they're like sitting behind their phones.
Yeah.
They're like,
all caps. No way, I strongly disagree.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when they come in here, those same people, when they come into the store,
They're pussycats.
They say, what do you think about this? Yeah. And it's such a baiting question because if anyone ever asks something like that, typically it's not for general advice. It's because they already feel very strongly about something. And then Shawn and I will not give an opinion until we find out what they thought we were going to say.
You got to be gentle sometimes.
You have to be gentle.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Handle with kid gloves.
Yeah.
I think that's the term.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, just start out there and then
You don't
find
want to
some
be
common
just
ground.
overly opinionated. Like,
Yeah.
No way. What are you
Right.
cleaning your symbols for? That's stupid. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
that.
behind a screen, there's no consequence.
No
to
consequence.
What you say.
Right,
so,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit different story. So I've got a few here. I almost said a couple. I'll say a few because I've got 3 to go into this. Now, if you dig something, if it's your vibe, you crank it up.
Okay.
If you don't like it or it's just not one of the habits you agree with or whatever, you turn it down. If you really hate it, Shawn created a 3rd category. Instead of cranking it up or turning it down, he cranked some things down.
That's right.
That's passion.
I've cranked it down. I
There's-
think I said it by mistake once and it stuck. Now I'm
There's
cranking that one down.
passion behind
Adam's
cranking
looking
it.
at me like, he's like, crank it down. I'm
I'm
like,
like-
yeah, that's...
I'm like, come on, this is our first podcast. We're introducing the segment.
And I've already,
And you've already
changed it.
changed it all. Changed up the rules. All right, guys.
Just
so,
when you think you have all the answers, I change the questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So, crank it up, turn it down, big symbols.
Well, I'm cranking that up.
Okay?
Yeah, I own a lot of big symbols, and I don't own a lot of small symbols, so crank it up.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever owned a crash symbol below... Okay. I was going to say below 16, but I did have a 14. I had a 14 ZBT set. I had like my first symbol pack was like a... Actually, it wasn't my first. But my first symbols were TKO percussion symbols, I remember. And then I upgraded to like a ZBT pack.
Yeah,
And
and then
it was the
you built-
13, 14, 18 ride. So I technically did have a 14, but that wasn't really by like design or choice or anything. So right now, I don't own any symbol below 16.
I wouldn't consider a 16 big. I would say we're talking 18 and up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as that's concerned. I played for years. A 16 is kind of like my first crash right there. I like a 16-18 setup, which I think is pretty common, especially when you're getting like your first, especially if you start with a pack, which a lot of customers do that, and you basically get a symbol for free.
Yeah.
When you're not sure, when you're starting out, the best thing to do is to not overanalyze and like pick out each symbol individually. Like, just get yourself a pack of nice symbols and start there,
Start
and then
playing, start
and then you'll be
working
like,
on it.
okay, these hats sound a little
Sure.
off. This ride, and then you upgrade and kind of thing. That's a really good way to start. But typically, those packs have 14 hats, a 16, 18, and a 20-inch ride.
Yeah.
I have all sorts of symbols as we end up collecting stuff. But the ones I use the most often I'm cranking it up, by the way.
Oh,
as
sure.
well.
Yeah.
I'm weighing in. I'm cranking it up.
figured-
That's not obvious.
I figured
that-
as much.
behind this explanation. But my rides that I typically grab most often are 21s.
You have a 22. Do you not? Is it a 22?
I did. I don't anymore.
Okay.
No, I don't have a 20.
We need to change that.
yeah.
I know.
Yeah, we need to
I
change
know.
it.
I had.
Let's get you
I
a
think
22.
the last 22 I had was one of those Sabian Omni rides.
Okay. Yeah. See,
One
I
of those good ones
remember.
with the real
Okay.
thick
Yeah.
inside and the
Yeah.
thin edge.
Yeah.
That was kind of a cool thing. But by far, my favorite symbols that I play currently are my hi-hats, and they're Zildjian K-Suite hats, but they're the 15s.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they just sound so good.
Yeah.
Like, they're tight when they need to be, but they're just that, just you loosen up on that and you just get that nice chick that's just like a little bit of meat behind it. That said, I've never played with like 19 or 20-inch crash cymbals per se.
Man, come over to my house, man.
I know. That's
I got lots.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
My hats right now at home anyway. I'm playing 2 16 crashes together as hi-hats. 2 16
Big hats,
A's.
wow.
I know. So what are you playing?
It depends on the
Yeah,
gig.
exactly. I know what you mean. I
Yeah,
know
it
what you
depends
mean.
on the room. Or
Like, do you have a set at home that you play?
Yeah.
A set up, ready to go? What
Yeah.
does that look like?
the whole thing, or just the symbols.
Yeah, symbols.
Oh, right now they're silent symbols.
Okay.
But if I was gonna make noise, it'd probably 15s. I have a bunch of like 4 pair of like vintage A 15s.
Nice.
Vary in thickness.
Yeah.
Real paper thin.
Absolutely.
Are you a big like grams type of guy? Do you know what grams those symbols are or anything else like that?
And I usually write it underneath the bell when I first get it, just so I know.
So just so you know, right?
Yeah. So when I'm grabbing cymbals for a gig, I'm like, okay, that one. Okay, you come with me.
Yep.
And
need something a little heavier for this gig. I'll grab the 280 or whatever it is grams.
Yeah.
And then you can mix and match too.
I always, I do that a lot with hi-hats. You know, I'll look through the pile and I'll say, okay, let's try this one with this one today, and see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
With different setups and different sounds, it'll make you play differently.
It sure does, yeah. And I'm thinking as we're talking about big cymbals, I'm thinking my set that I have set up at home right now. I play really like a basic setup usually. I have a slew of cymbals, but my ride cymbal at home that I'm playing on is a 20-inch A ride that I bought from John Pfeiffer. I have a 19-inch AA crash cymbal, Sabian, and then I have my 16 hi-hat. So I'm playing all pretty big cymbals. My ride cymbal right now isn't big, but that's my setup at home. That's what I'm playing.
Yeah. I've played on a lot of larger cymbals and different things like that. We had his name escapes me at the moment, but we had a customer come in one time, and pretty frequent customer, not like, I remember his name.
I'll remember his name.
Right, we'll get there.
I'm good at that.
We'll get there. But he came in once and he said, "What rides are you playing right now?" And I said, "Well, I'm playing this." And he's like, "What else?"
Yeah.
And it like completely threw me for a loop. He's like, "I always play at least 2 rides."
Right.
And I was like,
"It's got to be pretty good."
Listen, there are no rules, man. And I love that. I love getting thrown off balance because I'm always out here being like, play whatever you think sounds good. You know what I mean? Don't worry about brands and this and that. Like, it's all about the sound. Like, that's where you should start, right? And I'm a big proponent of like mixing and matching and experimenting and doing whatever you want. You know what I mean? There are some people out here acting as drum police and saying this is how this is supposed to. It's like, guys, it's art. You can do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want.
But when I get a question or when he said that to me, I was just like, that was like an unlock for me. This was years ago, but that was an unlock for me. I'm like,
right.
Why not, right? Yeah. And that night I went home and put a second ride up, and it was super fun. And everything I have is pretty thin that I normally take out. Very crashable stuff.
Yeah, I like that too. I like rides that are crashable.
Yeah. So it's easier to mix it up and be like, all right, this is kind of like acting as a crash, or it's a cymbal is a cymbal. Back in the day, you walked into the drum shop, and you said, I need a 16-inch cymbal. I've got my hi-hats. Right. I've got an 18 already. And maybe I've got a 20, but I'm missing the 16. And they said, okay. They walked over to the rack, which we have a vintage Zildjian rack from
that would look good up here.
It would look good up here. Maybe we'll bring it up here.
We
have a really cool vintage Zildjian rack. And it was like, that was it.
Josh?
What's that?
You've seen the vintage cymbal rack that we
have?
have?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, and that was it. And you put, they sit this way in it. You've got your 2 sets of hats, maybe, your crashes and your ride. But it was just, what size do you need? What inch? And that was a cymbal. And then you were just handed that. And it's funny. We've got, I don't know if you noticed, I know you were checking out the vintage Ludwig downstairs. Yeah. That 18 that we have on the, coming off the bass drum says ride underneath it. It's written on it. Like, this is the ride. Like, literally, cymbals weren't labeled. They weren't stamped. They weren't be like, this is a crash ride versus a crash. It's like, a cymbal's a cymbal. Play on it and fit it into your setup wherever.
Yeah. Ever play 18 hats? You ever do that?
Yeah. I've experimented.
Okay. I've never done that.
Yeah.
Maybe at the shop. Maybe I put 2 together.
Yeah, I like 15s. Most of my cymbals are 15s. I have a couple 14s. I don't have any 13s at the moment. What I like about 15s is the real estate it takes up. Yeah. I can have my legs spread out just a bit farther from from my kit, and you get that extra, half inch closer to you with the cymbal. And I don't have to. Sometimes I'll close my eyes and I'll miss the cymbal completely. The hi hat, like if I'm playing a 14. And I was just like, oh, yeah, you got to stay awake here, because you're playing a smaller cymbal.
I've definitely been in that situation, just being a taller guy, sitting down. A kit that I play in my church has 13s on it. Yeah. And, I go from at home. Yeah. I go from at home playing the 15s to going to the 13s. Yeah. And I'm literally like, okay, I have to just scoot the whole stand closer.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really weird muscle memory because you're just like, okay, we're just kicking a beat. You know what I mean? And you start playing, and it's just like, whoop.
Yeah. Oh, I miss cymbals all the time, and
Oh yeah.
I'll look out to see who saw it, and I'll just, yeah, you saw that. Good job.
Right.
Yeah. Or you just do it again. You're like,
Yeah.
play it off like you're doing something.
Yeah.
Actually, I dropped my stick Friday, last song, and there was some fills going on, and when you get up there and you're playing with a bunch of bands and you have to set up real quick and all this kinds of stuff, you're not too comfortable, but I don't even worry about dropping sticks anymore. I don't, because I have one ready to go. But like did the old it didn't just drop where like I could just grab another one. It did the old twirl thing, but like I didn't miss a beat, and like it just kind of like fumbled around, and I'm like I was playing with one hand, and then I grabbed it, and like I don't even think anybody noticed that.
Yeah,
it just kind of like twirled around the set, like bounced around a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Oh man, the worst is when I'll drop it and it'll do that thing, that plinko thing.
That's it.
And then
Plinko.
it'll land in your bass drum pedal, and you can't hit your bass drum pedal. It's like, man.
That's it.
Okay,
We're coining that term. Drumstick plinko.
Yeah.
I know.
That's
I know
it.
we're talking about cymbals right now, but it just reminded me of something that doesn't happen too often because I wear tight pants now.
Yeah.
But back in the '90s, it was cool to wear big pants.
Jenko.
Yeah, I never had any Jenkos, but all my friends did. But I had the almost Jenkos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never quite that big, but it was cool to cut it off at the bottom, and it was frayed apart. But you're playing, and like your pant would come up, and the beater would get stuck.
Oh, yeah.
in
That is
there.
the worst
Dude.
feeling.
Yeah.
That's the worst feeling. I had that happen to me 2 years ago. I was at a Halloween party show, and I had my Ghostbusters getup on. So I had the jumpsuit, right? But I didn't think about it. But those were like
You mean uniform?
uniform. I had my uniform. I was going to work on some Ghosts, and then also happened to be playing the drums that night. But the beater got caught up in because those pants are fat at the bottom,
right.
and I normally have them tucked into my boots.
Yeah.
But I was literally I took like the combat boots for like the getup, and which normally I just play, but it was like a long show, and I was like, I'll just take it off. You know what I mean? I was like, I couldn't really move too well, right? And I was just like, these boots literally don't fit me to walk in, let alone play drums in. So I took my right boot off, left my left boot on. This is the world I live in for some reason. I don't know why. Uneven. But the beater, like second song, got stuck in there, and I was like, and you push down, it just pulls on your pant leg, but you don't. Nothing happens.
You're like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay, I'm just wondering if that ever happened.
Yeah.
To you guys. It just dawned on me as you're talking about the plinko, which I'm like, tunk, 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 tunk.
That actually goes into like our next segment, our next crank it up, turn it down. By the way, 3 cranks it up, 3 people cranking it up
good.
on big cymbals.
Yeah, buddy.
The next one, all right, guys, crank it up, turn it down, playing barefoot.
I do it. I'm gonna go ahead and crank it down. I prefer to. No,
You really disagree.
No, I don't really
You're
disagree.
just turning it down.
I can't. I did
He
that one.
literally just
No.
doesn't understand the concept.
I know.
of this thing. It's okay.
I know. I'm dyslexic. Okay.
Me too, man.
I really
Yep.
am.
Cool.
I am. I'm very dyslexic. So, I don't mean to say crank it down because I don't strongly disagree with this because I will play barefoot when I'm at home and I just want to play drums for like 3 minutes because I'll do that. I'm also ADHD, so I'm like, okay, I want to play. I need to play a beat. I need to go play a beat, and sometimes I'll slip the sandals on, but sometimes I don't know where those things are.
Yeah.
So I will play barefoot, but then almost immediately I'm like, I don't like this. So I like wearing shoes. So I am going to turn it down. I'm not cranking it down because I will do it, but I prefer to play in shoes. So crank it down on that. I like playing in shoes.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say turn it up. If that's your thing. I love wearing boots, but I don't play in boots. I usually play in like flat sneakers or something like that. But man, if I could get away with being barefoot all the time, I probably would. So why not?
Yeah.
No doubt.
Turn it up.
I don't like wearing shoes normally, so when I get home, the shoes come off. I feel better, but maybe it's the pedal. If you think about that,
I was just gonna say it is a learning curve, just like everything else. I have this vintage pedal that I've been up in my practice room lately, and I just put it on, and I've been playing just in socks or barefoot, and I'm really surprised at how accurate. It's almost like I don't know, switching sticks. You almost have to learn how to play with a different pair of sticks.
Sure
it just
do.
takes a little bit. But playing barefoot for me, it's all about, there's like nothing between you and the pedal. It's just like everything you need out of it, you have to physically do it as opposed to having that shoe there. You gotta, I don't know, it's just a different ball game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would normally. I'm gonna crank it up. But again, I feel like this is one of the ones that's kind of on the line for all of us.
Sure.
But it definitely depends on the pedal that you're playing. Christy Angle, who teaches here, you know Christy.
Yeah.
You know Christy. Everyone knows Christy around here. Great drummer. She loves playing. Shout out Christy. Yes, hello Christy, if you're listening. I don't know. But
Not yet.
not yet. Yeah,
This isn't live. This is live to tape, but it ain't live.
It ain't
it's
live
not?
yet.
Oh,
Well, she'll listen to it
Yeah.
at some point, hopefully. This is the test. If she doesn't bring this up to us, we know she's not
That's
actually
right.
listening to our show. No, but she loves playing without shoes. Like,
Yeah.
she'll literally
That's
walk
right.
around venues without shoes. Like,
And
she's-
here.
Yeah.
She's teaching here, and
She loves that.
She's played my drums barefoot. We did a
And you have to
gig with her
disinfect it.
band and shared a drum set. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I always wonder what she does, and I should ask her this because I've got a Ludwig Speed Flyer pedal. I have another Mapex Falcon that I play for a while. But like they're all relatively smooth pedals. If you get the Sonar JoJo pedal, it's like literally just flat.
That would work. I think I could make that work.
But think about like a DW 5000 or something that has like the etching sticking up.
Yeah.
What did she play on your kit? What did you have on there?
I would probably be my DW 5000.
Oh,
Okay.
gosh.
Unless
I wonder.
I don't know if she brought her own pedal.
Right,
But
right.
it was probably 5000.
Probably
That's interesting because
not.
that seems rough. But if
It
she's,
is.
I don't know. If
She's pretty tough.
we say she,
Yeah.
but this is any barefoot drummers out
Anyone.
there.
That's right.
Um,
How do y'all do
If
it?
you don't like wearing shoes,
Yeah.
maybe you got those calluses. You know.
Yeah. And if you need shoes, just call me. I'll help you out. You know, I've had a few pair at home.
Do you have the Dave Weckl drumming shoes?
I do not.
Okay.
I
We need.
don't.
Yeah, that's
So
something.
those were a thing.
that's-
Really?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Do you remember when that was?
90 something, 7, 8, somewhere around there, I
Yeah.
think.
Did you? I imagine that was so small that it was just like you had to go to a place to buy them, or
I
did
saw
the
them in
shop
Modern-
didn't sell them or anything? did they?
Yeah, they did, but this was before my time. The Queen Street
Okay.
store had them. We'll have to ask
Wow.
Rick about that. They actually had drumming shoes there. They may have had like 3 pair, so they had them down there. But they were also in, I think you could find them in the Modern Drummer magazine too.
Yeah.
They were advertised
Oh,
in
I
there.
bet.
But I don't think that they lasted very long. And they, you know what they look like? They almost look like water shoes in a way, I think.
Cool.
If my memory serves
Okay.
me correctly, like, you know, shoes you'd
Like real, thin soles or something.
Yeah, thin soles. I think there was Velcro involved.
Ooh, I like Velcro.
Yep.
Velcro's cool.
So it's like what you would put on if you're going to go like tubing in the river.
wow.
These sound like real dorky shoes.
Yeah.
Dorky looking shoes for everyday life.
Perfect for
potentially,
drummers.
But perfect for drummers.
Perfect for drummers.
Design.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Bernard Purdy says
That's right.
on the record, the
Yeah.
number one mistake that drummers are making is playing drums in sneakers.
Get
Yeah.
out them sneakers.
I like a low sole, you know, just a very thin sole, you know, nothing too big. That's what, man, like I said, I love
Can you-
wearing cowboy boots, but I don't
But you don't play in them?
Yeah, I wouldn't even wear these to a gig probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they just too cumbersome?
Yeah, plus the heel sticks up a bit.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's always getting caught on the back of the pedal, you know, like where the pedal comes down the edge of it.
I can remember, I don't do this very much, but you know, you go to a wedding and you get all dressed up
Oh, yeah.
and playing. Like, I've never done a wedding gig, but I've played drums in my tuxedo, and I remember feeling the dress shoes and everything. And
Yeah.
like, they're so smooth.
They're
I
so
remember,
slick.
like, I'm like, oh, I feel like a jazz drummer.
I know. You're all of a sudden your ankles start going, your hands start
Yeah,
going.
all of a sudden I just
Yeah.
felt like I could pull that off.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that's playing barefoot. I have one more. We'll do a speed round with this one.
Okay, go ahead.
One more. Crank it up, turn it down. Rack tom in a snare basket.
Oh.
I have to say, crank it down, turn it down. I'm not going to crank it down because I've done it.
Yeah.
Because there's certain situations.
I feel like every
I'm gonna
drummer's
say-
done it or played
Yeah.
on it, so it's a good thing that everyone kind of has an experience
I'll
with.
try to be quick with this, but I'm going to turn it down for the simple fact that when you hit that drum, it's real grounded. Like, it doesn't resonate. It is very noticeable. As far as a convenience thing goes, sometimes it's just heck of a convenience thing to just throw that in a basket than to mount it off a simple stand. Or if you're playing a vintage drum set and you don't want to have to monkey around with the the tom holder, which isn't user friendly, and you got to bring the old wrench out and you're just trying to
Yeah,
adjust on the fly,
sure.
it's easy just to throw that in a basket. But if you can avoid it, I would say have it mounted off the bass drum if you can. Man, maybe I would rather have it in a snare basket than off a cymbal stand, though. But I think I just have to turn it down just for the simple fact that it doesn't resonate. It is grounded, so I'll turn it down.
All right. What do you think?
I'll crank it up. Yeah, I do it all the time. But, yeah.
I think if you're miking the drums, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, if your drums are all mic'd, because I played the Chameleon Club a bunch of times when I was playing in another band, and I had a Ludwig Classic Birch. It didn't have a mount off the bass drum, and I would have to mount it off the cymbal stand, and I quickly learned that I hated that. I didn't like doing that. So I strictly, that drum set, I always played with the 13, because it was a 9x13 mounted into the basket. So there's pictures of me doing that, and I didn't seem to mind until I did mount it off a cymbal stand, you know, and then I'm like, wow, this sounds so much better.
Yeah, especially a rack time that just goes boom.
Yeah. So, but if you're playing at a big club and you play the big boy gigs and you're miking that sucker up, then you know, maybe I'll change my opinion. I got to crank it up because there's as I'm talking myself into it. There's a lot more positive things involved in that.
Yeah.
The mounting system of the old vintage drums. Sometimes it doesn't have a mount on it. I'd rather put it on a snare basket than off a cymbal stand. So here's the first. I'm changing it. Let's crank it up.
Cranking it up. All right. Well, I'm gonna turn it down. I hear all of that.
Turn it down too,
I agree with all of that. Yeah, exactly. Now that Shawn cranked it up, we all want to turn it down.
Man, I want to change.
No, I'm turning it down just because whenever I play a kit that's like that, unless I set it up myself, it's just never quite right. I feel like in my mind, I just am like, maybe if I turn a little bit this way, maybe if I raise it up, maybe if I lower it, and like that, I'm not super fussy, which means I'm gonna play it in a spot that might not be the most comfortable for me almost every time.
I'll tell you what, at the old shop, at the old location, right before you guys move, a couple months, maybe 6 months or something, I noticed that you had a Tama, I believe it was a Tama, snare drum stand, like a basket stand, but it had an arm coming off of it.
Yep.
And I think we talked about it.
Sure.
And I said, man, this must be the coolest snare drum stand because you could take it and put a tom and have it closer to the center of that bass drum if you wanted to.
Yeah.
I don't know if it boomed out. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah, so essentially what that stand is it's a snare drum stand bottom, but then the top has an L arm that comes out from the center and up, but it's angled a little bit over. So when you put the weight of the drum directly above where the legs are. And that stand, great.
That's a cool stand.
Yeah. That is such a great invention, really. And it's you get the resonance from all the mounting system of your tom, but you still have the freedom to move it wherever you want.
Yeah, I like that one.
I could have used that back in my Ludwig Classic Birch days.
Yeah.
But I don't have that set anymore.
That'd be great. Awesome. So 2 cranks it up, turn it down.
I changed mine.
Oh, boy.
I talked myself out of it. That's a first.
He talked himself out of it. All right, let's move on to drum industry news. All right, so welcome back. Drum industry news is where we like to talk about stuff that happens in the drum industry, obviously, that a lot of folks might not know about.
Cool.
And
I might not even know about it.
Shawn says this every time, and I'm sick of having this conversation, so I'm ignoring it, and we're moving on. So this is a topic that I thought was a good thing to bring up while you're here, because you have certain experiences that we might not have. Okay. But I think we can both chime in on this and kind of give both of our perspectives. So for today's topic, we're talking about sourcing gear for touring before or during a tour that you're out on.
Yeah.
So I'm curious your perspective. What do you load up on as far as like, hey, I'm going out. Do you load up then? Do you get stuff on the road? What's your protocol?
I have really good folks at Diodario. About a year ago, I linked up with them, and they provide me with my sticks, drum heads, and snare wires. And so if I'm going on a tour, it's going to take me about 2 weeks to a month. You know, I'll go up to my studio and I'll decide which drum set I'm going to bring out and which pedals I'm going to bring out, cymbals. I usually call Diodario, and if I need something, they get that to me.
Yeah, so that's Evans drum heads,
Evans
Pure
drum
Sound
heads.
wires,
Yep.
and ProMark sticks.
That's right.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And but what I really like choosing the drum set is always something. If we're playing smaller rooms, I'll bring a smaller kit. If we're playing a lot of really big theaters or outdoor festivals,
Yep.
where there's more stage space, I'll bring a larger drum set. Nothing crazy. Maybe an extra tom or something like that. Maybe a double floor tom sometimes. For me, the most important thing is this gear going to hold up? I bring some tools with me always, and usually I'm not the only guy in the band that needs the tools. So everybody comes to me for tools, and then I come to them for snacks later on as, a pain.
Yeah, you trade it.
It works out pretty well.
You needed that screwdriver?
Yeah. That's a Snickers bar.
Yep.
Later on. But yeah, my main thing is like, I'm not a heavy hitter, so my heads aren't going to break. My cymbals most likely are never going to break. But what will possibly break is a floor or a bass drum pedal.
Right.
So like I have a couple of vintage bass drum pedals that I love, like an old Gretsch, like floating ghost something or floating axe or whatever the heck it's called. I love that pedal, but I just don't bring it on the road because it's probably going to break it at some point, and I really need those tools with me that are, durable.
Yeah.
So like I bring like a 5,000 pedal. At my cymbal stands, I usually, in a pinch, I'll have like a little toolbox full of like hose clamps or like gaff tape. Something just if something breaks, I can
That's good
quickly.
advice.
Yeah.
This is great advice. And also one thing that just
Yeah.
triggered my mind is when you're playing I know you want to play your like that Gretsch pedal you love.
Yeah.
On the road, if you need a part for that pedal, you ain't gonna find it. 5,000, like everyone's gonna have it.
Yeah.
You can order it. You can do whatever you can to get it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a lot easier to fix that pedal on the road. So yeah, totally.
Yeah, I bring like I used what I have in right now is Ultimate Ears molded in-ear monitors, and I'll usually have an extra cable for that in case the cable goes bad. Yeah, I bring a lot of stuff on the road as
a
far
lot of extras.
Yeah,
but also not just spare stuff, but like tools to fix what you are.
Oh,
bringing.
absolutely, because I'm a fix-it kind of guy. I like to work on stuff, and I'll usually bring 2 snare drums.
Bass drum head.
What's that?
Extra bass drum head.
Yeah, I always have an extra bass drum head. Actually, I always have an extra head in each case.
Nice.
Like if something happens, just throw that on,
Do you keep like the extra heads in like your cymbal bag, or how do you keep those?
I just put them in my hard shell cases. I got, what is it called?
SKB?
KB cases.
Yep.
Oh,
yeah.
and like you keep them all in like the box inside, like maybe the bass drum case or something?
Yeah, just throw the bass drum in,
Nice.
and then I take that extra head, throw it on
Good
top.
idea.
And yeah, just so, just in case. Or if I
No
change
pun
out
intended.
a head, and that head still has some time left on it, I'll just throw that in the case.
Just
Usually
as a
have.
spare.
Yeah.
But this is funny too, because the first time we met, or the first time I ever met you, was when you came in. I know that you're not a Lancaster native.
I'm not, no.
Yeah, you moved here, and you came in and you needed to rent hardware for a tour.
I did, because I was on tour that month with 2 different bands. And I had to go from one tour. Okay, so what happened there? The first tour that I was on was like a week and a half or 2 weeks. That drum set that I was supplying for that band, their drummer couldn't make the first week of the tour. So I had my drum set out with that band. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as their drummer could make it back to that tour, I was leaving and going to another tour.
Gotcha.
And I had a lot of drum sets, but I didn't have a lot of hardware. At that point, I was having one set of hardware. And I remember that. I came in.
Yeah, well, you had done it a few times. It wasn't just that once and done thing.
Yeah, there was a couple times.
Yeah, there's like a half a dozen times that you had rented that hardware from us. Because we had a couple of rental kits, and then one we had the SKB case, and it had a DW 5000 Hyatt sand. And so it was all DW hardware, I do believe.
Yeah.
There may have been a Tama Road Pro in there or something like that, but it was all like pro level stuff. for a Yamaha set that we had rented out, and you would come in and rent that thing, and
Thanks for that.
Oh yeah, totally. No, thank you.
I forgot about
Absolutely, man. Oh, for
That's
sure.
really why you're here. Sean's really every morning he comes. He's like, man, he hasn't thanked me yet for that hardware case.
I was
I'm
waiting
such
for that
a
thank
jerk.
you. No, that's what it was there for.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I had anyone ever rented out for a tour like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. And
Yeah,
it's kind of neat.
there was a couple bands that I was working with that their drummer also was in another like pretty good, touring situation, and it just so happened that he couldn't make a lot of those dates, and luckily the band that I was working for wasn't working, but it was just close enough where I had to have 2 sets out at the same time.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then we were just flying back and forth, me and this other drummer. We were just trading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
gigs.
for the drummers that aren't prepared when they're out on the road,
Yeah.
we get the frantic call from them.
Oh yeah.
The
for sure.
band manager, whatever. Like, do you have this, and this? And I always think it's really funny or interesting that when someone is in a pinch and they're like really, really frantic sounding on the phone, they're asking for such specific gear that I'm like, do you really think, like, the whole beggars can't be choosers kind of thing? Not saying that we don't have an extraordinary selection of like drum heads and everything. We've got gear and gear and gear on gear. Yeah. But again, that call is always going to be, we're playing tonight. We need it right now. So there's no ordering, no getting anything in. And it's always like, I need a 6-inch vintage Emperor, but the white suede vintage Emperor. Always something very, very specific. And that always surprises me. So if you're in that situation, or you find yourself in that situation in the future, I would definitely say be realistic about your options. Yeah. You know what I mean? And if you're lucky enough to be in a city that has a drum shop, you'll have a lot more than just a music store or whatever.
Yeah.
But definitely, if you're prepared, or even stuff happens and you're like, I don't have a solution for this, I forgot this at home. Yeah. It happens, but just be like open to suggestions and being flexible, really.
Yep. Yeah, one nice thing about touring is you're playing all the major markets, the major cities. Usually, there's probably a great drum shop in most cities. Like that you stop in, and like this one here.
That's it.
Yeah, man.
I would consider Lancaster a major metropolitan area, but there is a great drum shop.
Sure.
Drums.
Yeah, there's a great drum.
Yeah.
L.A., New York, Lancaster.
It's like right there on the list. The top five.
Top 5.
I tell you what, when my wife and I moved down here, I think it was like 2017 or maybe early 18, and I had never. I was told I played here once at a Roots Blues Festival. I don't remember playing here, but we did, I guess. And my wife's like, I want to move to Lancaster. And I'm like, hey, whatever. I can work from anywhere. Yeah. So, like, if that's where you want to go. And I had a big moving truck. I was driving down the road, and we drove past the old shop. And I said to the guys that were in the truck with me, I'm like, man, I don't know anything about this town, but right there is a good omen that I need to be here. And we moved right down the street, and I was in a lot at that old location.
Yeah, I know you were, and you picked up a lot of cool vintage cymbals, as you said, and rented that hardware. And it's always a pleasure when you would come in, so it's always been a blast.
Oh, man, I love having you guys here.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere.
Cool. Good.
Sean, I want you to touch quickly on the backline companies and that call, or them showing up. That's very different than a manager or a drummer being panicked on the phone.
Sure, because they have a rider, of course, as you know. The band gives these backline companies a rider, and we've dealt with a lot over the years. Around town, a lot. And they would call and say, and they usually won't take any alternatives. Mm-hmm. If they want that 6-inch vintage Emperor suede head, they won't take a clear. The guy on the road usually would, because he's in a pinch and he broke that head and he needs to do it. Usually you'll find, fine, whatever you want. He's just happy he found an 8-inch head in town or whatever it is. But for those guys, they'll come in and say, hey, do you have these heads in stock? And they'll take whatever it is that we have. Do you have these cymbals in stock? They'll take whatever it is that we have, and they're usually, getting replacement parts for their stands, replacement felts, sleeves, and all that type of stuff. So, you know, that's what a lot of those phone calls entail. Is just they won't take the substitutes because it's
and there's a little less pressure that comes along with
that
because it's just like, hey, I'm doing my job.
Yep.
I'm supposed to look at this piece of paper and call you, and then if you have it, I check it off the list.
Yep,
you know,
pretty
that
much.
kind of thing.
And then if we don't have it, they'll go to Plan B. You know, whatever that is, order it in from somewhere else, or order in from us. But usually it's like, okay, I need whatever you have on this list today. And they'll take it, grab it, and go. There were times when we also provided backline too. We had concert equipment. We had a couple of sets of vibes. We had timpani. We had concert bass drum. I remember you wrapped a bass drum for us.
Yeah.
Yep. That was pretty cool. I think it's hanging up over at the old store.
I think so.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And Rick and I went on a lot of adventures to different performances and you know delivered stuff. Long's Park, we rented drum sets out for that a lot of times, so we were the backline company too.
We did that to a certain extent,
but we only had, it's funny too because we would get the rider, you know, and we kind of did the opposite. We just showed up with our gear. Like, you know, they a lot of times, you know, you'll ask for specifics and top of the line stuff. That way, no matter what you get, you're going to get. If you want a DW 5000 pedal, you're going to be okay if we show up with Iron Cobra.
Yeah.
You're fine. You just want something good.
Yeah.
You know, if they're like, I need, you know, DW boom stands, you're going to be fine if we show up with Pearl 2000 series double brace boom stands. So we would look at that and try to provide everything that we could. And we've never had any problems. So, like, GW drum throne. Well, we have a rock and sock. You know, they never complained or said anything. So,
yeah. It's a little bit different than, you know, big rock stars saying, I need these M&Ms backstage. You know, it's like, it's a little bit different of an ask for, like, some local person that's playing, you know, a couple shows at a dinner theater. Like, we need a drum set that's nice.
Yeah.
You know.
That's usually all it is.
I was going to say, but I'll have everyone out there know that if they rented a timpani or vibes or anything like that, that means that we had to go to the basement because that's the only place we had room for everything, kept it in the basement, and then we had a full flight, if not more, always seemed like more, but it was a flight of stairs, and we had this old conveyor belt that I believe that was left over from when it was Martin's Appliance, right?
Yeah.
This old conveyor belt on these stairs, but if anything weighed more than, like, I don't know, just because of the angle, probably 20 pounds, it would slide back.
Yeah.
So this is the process.
It's like Scooby-Doo.
This is what happened.
Feet moving,
exactly.
And you're like walking up the conveyor belt and you're not going anywhere and you have this whole timpani.
Two of us are downstairs moving like timpani and we like lift one end up. The other person runs up the other staircase the whole way to the top, turns the belt on. This is very dangerous. Turns the belt on and so it starts rolling, but it's too heavy to hold back. And then you run up and you stop on the belt and you're like this, holding the timpani from falling back on you. The other person's at the top with the lever, like turning it on and off. And then you balance there. And then halfway through, you have to duck because that's where the bricks of the floor come in.
Yeah.
So you're like this on you're sideways. Dangerous. And then when you get to the top at the right time, the person had to stop the belt and then it would lurch. Yeah. And then you just don't fall down the crack in the hole. And
we can joke about it now, but I don't think that was... what's the word I'm looking for?
Everyone always brings up OSHA compliance.
It's not OSHA compliant.
Yes, exactly. That's it. So, but I just want everyone to know how much work went into that.
Well, you guys are risking your lives for this art.
We did.
That's what I'm saying.
We could have been crushed by timpani many times. Death by timpani. Crushed. Awesome. So yeah, let's move on to our next segment. Start getting real nerdy about gear with Hall of Fame.
All right.
All right, so Hall of Fame is, like I said, where we get real nerdy talking about specifics of gear. We started our own Hall of Fame just for another reason to talk about drum stuff. That's it. That's all it is.
Everyone else has a Hall of Fame. Why can't we?
Why can't we? We don't have trophies that we send these companies or anything. But maybe we ought to be like, congratulations.
We could send them a mug.
We need nominees too. We don't nominate anyone. We just pick something and we're like, you win. You win this time.
How do you know? Maybe we do. We have a committee. We have a board of directors that nominates these things. Don't
All right.
tell them that
the narrative. This is growing. It's growing. No, but we just like to take a minute to highlight certain things and then talk about our experiences with it. So the 7th inductee into the Drum Key Hall of Fame is, thank you, ProMark Hot Rods.
Ooh, yeah. Oh man.
This
Here they are.
These are actually hot rods. Hot rod, the term hot rods has kind of been stolen. It's kind of like people calling tissues Kleenexes.
Right.
But those right there are ProMark hot rods.
Yes.
In addition to making the hot rods, they also have Thunder rods, which are the same diameter but just thicker dowels. Cool rods, which are thinner dowels, less thinner dowels, and then Thunder rods, which are bigger dowels, just the big meaty boys.
But the general term is multi-rod.
Right.
You know, there's synthetic ones, wooden ones, some with the a wooden handle. But these are the ones that I think really started it all back in the day. You know, these were the originals, and everyone else has been trying to, I think, copy them for all these years. And these are definitely our bestseller and most versatile ones. I love them. You play them?
Oh yeah. Got 2 pair in my pack
Gotta
right
have
now.
them.
Yeah.
Now, you know, do you? How long does a one pair last for you?
Well, I've had the same 2 pair.
Listen to you now.
He starts a sentence that way. He's had them a while.
I've had them a long time. I tell you what,
I need to start taking some lessons with you.
I'm a very light hitter, and I'm so cheap that a pair of sticks will last me a year, you know, and they'll still look brand new.
Guy.
You know, like
I love this guy.
They'll actually, you can feel them wear out.
Yeah.
The tips and the shoulder wear out faster for me than they chip up.
Yeah.
Because whenever I'm looking at my stick bag during a gig or a tour, and I'm like, man, I got all these brand new sticks, but I'm so cheap, I don't want to start using them yet.
Right.
I'm the
These still
same
got
way.
some life into them.
Yeah. And then I'll see like someone in the audience having a really great time, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get a new pair out tomorrow, and these sticks are going to that person in the
Nice.
audience, or like a kid in the audience.
Oh, of course.
Always.
That's awesome.
That's always
For
the
sure.
thing I do. But that being said, I love playing with those.
The hot rods.
Yeah.
Do you?
Those particular
Okay,
ones,
cool.
yeah.
What's your second one favorite? Do you like the cool rods at all, or the?
I have a pair. They're all black, and they're maybe Regal tip.
Yep. Blastics.
Regal tip plastics.
I love those actually because they have the little rubber bands on them, and you can adjust them. And I just like the feel of them. I like the sound.
We have another set because Regal Tip. No one knows what's going on with these guys.
Okay.
Those were probably our second best-selling rods that we've had. The Blastics.
Yeah.
They have the nice wooden handle. They're pretty nice, but they play a little differently than these. There's a little bit more give to them.
Yeah.
But we always did well with those, but we can't get them.
Yeah.
They're back ordered everywhere. No one. Regal Tip was retooling for the past 10 years. Who knows what's happening with those guys?
Yeah.
If you're listening, call us and tell us what's going
Call
on.
Regal Tip.
We have
Call
no
all of
idea what's
us,
going on.
man.
But
Yeah.
I did find another pair. If you do like those, Meinl makes a great set with a nice wooden handle with the adjustable bands as well that we started stocking. So I came across those,
Yeah.
and
Cool.
they're a good alternative.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say that if you're a drummer that hasn't tried any rods or any brushes, or like if you literally just played with drumsticks, the quickest transition from drumsticks into these other multi rods is going to be something like Thunder rods or hot rods, particular, because they're still rigid. As soon as you start to get into a lot of the synthetic stuff, then you got a little bit more, like if I had some here, I could like just bend them.
Yeah.
Right. They're much more flexible. So that really, like, you kind of have to anticipate that when you're playing. And we were talking earlier, it takes a little bit of adjustment period to get used to playing a new pair of sticks or a new weight of this. Same thing with rods. Same thing with rods. The important thing with rods, especially if you want to make them last a long time, is you can't be wailing like you are playing drumsticks.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people grab rods or politely recommended to use rods in certain establishments because they're playing too loud.
Right.
And then they grab a pair of rods and play just as hard.
Yeah.
And they bust up really fast. And they're like, wow, what a waste of money.
Sure.
You know?
Because they are a bit price wise, I think bigger, a little bit more than
Yep.
the drumstick,
Yep.
right?
A little bit.
You know, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I would say I'd probably use these type of sticks maybe 10% of the time I'm playing. But that 10% is really, really important.
Mm-hmm. Sure is.
As opposed to like a $10 pair of sticks. What is the price point on that, you think?
They're $25 now.
$25.
Yep.
Yeah.
But they're really valuable when you need them. You know, like,
but you don't want to play them like normal sticks because you are going to chew these suckers up and they're going to start flying apart. So this is not your answer to little Johnny in the basement. Your drums are too loud and you want to quiet them down because, well, actually I take that back. No, but get these and buy 100 pair of these.
and some silent heads, and some silent cymbals.
No, but on the real tip, they're not the
solution to everything.
They're a different tool.
Yeah,
they just
different
add
tool in your toolbox.
Yeah, they add different texture to your playing. They're not a alternative to bashing and crashing.
One of my favorite drummers of all time, Levon Helm.
Yes, this is where we divulge into talking about Levon Helm for the rest of the podcast.
Right. Well,
he is like my guy, dude.
Okay. So I've had the really great fortune of not only meeting him, playing with him. I recorded a record up at his place. I played at his place like a lot, and whenever I see these, it's like right there's Levon.
Yep.
You know, like, but when he plays those on a record, you can hear it. It's like a feel. It's a slappy kind of thing that he, you know, that it's immediate. You know that he's playing with those.
It's so organic, and his drums just have a different sound to them. I think, and this is going off topic a little bit, but like nowadays in studios and such, I think drums are just so compressed, and so you could be playing on anything.
Yeah.
But his drums, you can hear every articulation. You can hear he hit a little bit on the side. He's hitting up at the top of the drum.
Yeah,
you can
it's
hear it
truly
all.
Recording the instrument that's being played in the room and trying to capture that versus...
You can hear these things being played.
Yeah,
you absolutely can.
I'm really good friends, and another really wonderful drummer. Shout out to Justin Gwip if you're ever listening here. Justin is a longtime friend, and he worked at Levon's studio. He was like Levon's second drummer. Whenever Levon would go play mandolin or something, Justin would jump in on drums.
Wow, so cool.
Just a wonderful guy. You know, we've talked about these kinds of sticks and hot rods and things like that. But yeah.
And this was his studio that he had in New York, right?
Yeah,
Is it Woodstock?
Woodstock, New York.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Levon Helm Studios.
Yeah,
that's great.
Big shout out to those cats. I know a lot of folks up there.
Man, that's cool.
Just good people. I've never been. I've been planning trips to go.
We should all go together.
We should go
to a show together.
I would love that. Go see a show and hang and
then go to your lake while we're up there.
Yeah, I have family in upstate. Not so Woodstock would be a little bit of divergence, but I've got family in New York. Every time I'm in New York, I'm like, maybe I should.
Oh, you should.
Know, and that would be. But for real, it's on the record. I'm going to take you up on that. And just great people. So much great music and just family collaboration. Like when I think of that, I think of that group and like everything that Levon did.
Oh, absolutely.
I think of just family and like that's the reason why I play drums. You know what I mean? And that's the complete opposite of so many people focusing on, you know, the money and the business side of things to the point where they're just like copying trends. And I'm just like, leave all that aside. This is what it's about.
Yeah, it's you know, what Levon and the guys in the band stood for was everything that every major musician wanted to be. When that first record came out, you know, guys like Eric Clapton were just like, I've been doing this wrong like all along. I'm playing too much. I gotta get back to the roots of all these things and the feel of it and
absolutely,
you know, the music part of it. You know, it's I can go on and on about this stuff.
Man.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what we're here.
It's so funny that because it's
brought up just these rods brought up so much.
Yeah. I know.
I actually so if you when we make it up to Woodstock and we go to the Ramble, I'll also show you right down the road in Woodstock there is Levon's gravesite, and you know, since his passing, every time I'm in town there, if I'm playing a show up there in either at Levon's place or at the Bearsville Theater right down the street, I'll go and stop at the gravesite first. You know, leave a little memento, and I've often left my, you know, if I have an old pair, I'll just leave them there, you know, at the gravesite and stuff. So, yeah, you know, it's just like a little paying your respects, and then it's good mojo.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love how you're absolutely right. As soon as you mentioned him, I was like, you can hear them.
Oh,
you can hear them. And using it as a sonic instrument, it's, you know, a lot of people view rods and view brushes and different things as like a means to they don't view it as a sound source or affecting the sound. They're just like, we're trying to play with sticks, but in a different volume or in a different style. Yeah. But it's just like, you know, own what you're doing. And every time I sit behind drums when I'm recording, my goal is to get the engineer or whoever to make it sound like what I hear. Yeah. I'm the one tuning the drums. I like how this sounds. Yeah. Capture that vibe. Very cool.
My earliest memory is seeing Dave Grohl play these on
Unplugged, MTV Unplugged.
That was my earliest memory. Like, what are those things? Yeah. That he's playing and not knowing what they were.
Man, Dave Grohl is such an amazing, you know what I mean, source of all things.
He's like an enigma.
Yeah, I love the guy.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan.
But that's my early memories.
Yeah, MTV Unplugged.
MTV Unplugged, and he's playing these things.
Yeah.
Man.
And here they are.
The sales
Hall
after
of Fame,
that.
baby.
The same exact pair.
Yeah, the same exact pair.
There they are.
Yes.
There they are. Buy them only at Drums Etc.
And we have 20 pairs. So
there you go.
Happen to have 20 pairs,
20 pairs
of the original
Dave Grohl played
for only $24.99 free shipping.
There you go.
We don't really ever sell. I mean, we talk about gear, but we don't ever say, "Hey, buy this," you know.
Nah, I'm not
buy
worried
these.
about
These
it.
are Dave Grohl. Give me a
buy these.
I'm not worried about it. Nah, we're giving to the community. We're not taking from them.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's move on and jump into our quick question. Oh boy. This is bad. Now our transition's in between. Shawn has an opportunity to make me bust up and laugh seconds before I have to speak again. The very same hot rods are now on the ground.
We love these things.
We love these things. Get rid of them. Next segment. Moving on. All right. So, quick question. Every time that someone comes in and they say, "Hey, quick question for you," it's going to take forever. It's never a quick question, or it's never a quick answer, I should say. The question itself is quick, never a quick answer.
Yeah.
And that can be for multiple reasons. That can be because we need more information from you. That can be, what are you trying to get out of this? It can be, what are you actually looking for as far as a question or an answer? There's all sorts of different things that go into it.
Or my favorite, the loaded question.
Or that's the loaded question.
That's a loaded question.
That's a loaded question. Exactly. So today's quick question, we get all the time, and I can't believe I haven't thought of this until this episode. This could have been one of our first ones. How long should I wait before I change my drum heads?
Right.
That is not a quick answer. There's no.
It certainly isn't.
After this date
every
they
3
expire.
weeks. Yeah. Or
That we should do that. We sell a lot more drum heads. We put an expiration date, like they do on like fruits and put an expiration date. Drums, etc. Head expires this date.
That's brilliant.
Like milk.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah, best if used by.
Yeah. Or like the sticker when you get your oil changed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This many gigs.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
This is all gold. This is great. But yeah, that isn't a quick answer. It's a quick question, I guess, but it doesn't have a quick answer because it all depends on how much you're playing the drums, how hard you're hitting the drums, what sort of tone you want to get out of the drums. Because truth be told, I have a few drum sets, but my main set that I had set up at home and I was practicing on, now that I'm back out gigging again, those heads have been on that kit for a long time. So, but if you mic them up, they still sound pretty good. But there's stick marks all over them. I would say if they get dented, you need to change them out.
Yeah. You got those divots. You're no longer going to be able to tune them up and get the tonality out of the drum that you need. But I'm in your boat where I'm a light hitter too. So it's more likely that someone else is going to do that if we're sharing a kit. Than myself after a long time. Yeah. There is kind of a period, especially with coated heads, I've come to realize, where when you first put them on, you're unsure about them, and then they kind of get broken in. Once you get your drum heads a little broken in, then they kind of hold tuning better and just kind of feel better and sound better. So you don't want to swap them out. When guys talk about going on tour and swapping out heads every night or something, in my mind I'm like, you didn't even get not even me. I'm not upset about them wasting it, but in my mind, I'm like, you didn't even break it in, get it sounding good yet. I mean, you kind of gotta let that head stretch. You know, the way drum heads are made now, you know, they're plastic, they're mylar, they got glue in there that's got to crack when you tune it up, and they gotta kind of sit on the drum and kind of get into that place. Mm-hmm. But like you said, as soon as you get a divot like that, you're no longer going to be able to get what you want out of it. Mm-hmm. But you know, it's one of those things that is preference.
Yeah. When I bring a kit home, which I hope my wife isn't listening, but it's pretty often. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm a big collector, and I'll usually get new heads on it. I'll just order a bunch of new heads, you know, or get new heads. But as far as like if I'm playing a drum, if I go, I don't know, if I loosen all the tension and there's a big old belly in that drum head, I'm like, you know what? Chances are, even if there's not dents, you know, when I have it tightened, if it's loose and it's sagging in the middle, I'll just replace it. My wife thinks that I get drum head, like a shipment of drum heads like once a week, which is not true. You know, or maybe it is. I don't really know.
But every time she recognizes the box, right?
She's like, God damn it. You know?
Yeah. She recognizes the tape. Yeah. It's one of those things that there is some. I was at an open mic a few years ago, and this guitar player went up, and he was out of tune, and like he played the first song out of tune, and it was like obvious. You know what I mean? It was obvious.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh boy, this is gonna be a long night. Like when am I up? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it was all for a setup. It was all set up. He had us all going. And then he was tuning up his guitar before his next song, and just it was pure dad joke like moment. He said, "Yeah, tuning's mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter." And then he went on to play another song, but he like played 2 songs that night, and his first one sounded horrible just so he could get the dad joke off.
Oh my gosh.
Well, sometimes, you know, you gotta make it hit.
I know.
Gotta make
the
that
dedication.
thing land.
Yeah. It was beautiful, but also I'd been had, so I felt embarrassed, you know.
Yeah.
That was good though. But good rule of thumb, if you're say a parent or someone that is not the drummer, go check out the heads. If you see any active dents in it, it's time. Yeah. But if it's been a little bit, and you know, say it's been a year and your kid's been really playing every day or every night, you know what I mean? Like you might have to change. If your kid's playing every night, you might have to change it 2-3 times a year, you know, depending on how hard they're hitting, especially, and it's kind of reverse of what people would think. When you're first starting out, you tend to go through a lot of drum heads more quickly, and that's just because of technique, you know, and the angles you have things at. If you've got your drums at, you know, a 45-degree angle and you're constantly hitting hard down, that's going to divot a lot faster than when you have a little bit more technique and you flatten stuff out a little bit and you're really striking in a central point on the drum head, you know, then you're not going to go through heads quite as often. But then hopefully at that point, you know, you're gigging more and you're playing more, so then it kind of balances itself out a little bit.
Yeah.
Or when your head breaks.
Yeah.
When it breaks,
it's time.
100% you need a new drum head. There's no like gray area there.
Oh,
you know?
Man. I played a gig. I was pretty young, young teenager. And we played this like battle of the bands, and we were using a house kit, but you would bring your breakables, what we consider breakables, and I brought mine, and I played a gig, and it was with a metal band. It was with a heavy metal band, which I don't play, and I don't even listen to heavy metal, but it was like the only people that were around my age that were playing music were into this music, so I, you know, gravitated towards that.
Yeah.
And the band that went on before us, or maybe after us, it must have been after us, I played. Mm-hmm. Well, he broke his snare head, like during the first song, and his bandmates are like, yo, like, let us get your snare. And I'm like, no, you're not going to. I've seen the guy play. I'm like, no, I don't play like that.
He just broke his drum.
You want him to break mine too?
Right.
It's like, come on, man.
Yeah. Wow.
So he just turned it over.
Started smacking the bottom.
And it broke immediately. And I'm like, see? You know?
This guy's breaking heads left and right.
Some of us are drummers.
Lessons learned, yep.
Some of us are not, you know?
Yep. You learned a lesson that day.
Yeah.
And maybe, hopefully he did, but probably not.
Probably not. Yeah.
I have an embarrassing drum head breakage story.
Yeah, go for it.
This was, so I have my, I should say this. I saved up my allowance money as a kid when I was first getting into drums, And then and this is a big, it's not a big inspirational thing, but I spoke at the Total Percussion Seminar last night or yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was telling the kids, I'm like, learning how to save money is really important. You know, whether you're making this much or you have $3 allowance or whatever, you know, it's important to kind of learn that. And I saved mowing money, that kind of thing, you know, allowance type, you know, peons. And I took all that money and I went into Drums Etc. to buy my first drum set. I actually have the receipt. Hang on.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. This is actually the receipt from my first drum set, right? And I bought it from Carl. Carl sold it to me.
Carl Greathouse of I Wish I fame.
I Wish I. Go check him out.
Local band.
But this after tax was $741.95.
Cool.
That's what I spent on my drums, right? But I bring that up because I take them home. Maybe a week later, we have band practice, and I'm all psyched. I was borrowing drums up till this point, so you know I had a band, and I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity. I just got a new girlfriend. And I was like, oh, come to band practice, which is a mistake that's been made many times. Yeah,
No.
come to band practice.
I've never heard of that.
So I invite this new girlfriend over for band practice. We literally start in first song, the snare head breaks. And I literally just bought this. I only have one thing. And this is why I rag on Shawn to this day. Because it broke lug to lug. Like you could see the line and I was like, this is uneven tension. And I didn't know anything about tuning drums. So I blame Shawn. In my hypothetical
I didn't sell you that drum
thought
set.
process, Shawn was the one that got it out of the box and put it on the floor before I bought it.
Nope.
And he's the one who didn't think to back everything out and tune it up properly.
Nah,
Even tension, folks, it's very important.
Well, thinking of that story, you know what's worse than bringing your girlfriend to band practice? Is bringing your girlfriend to band practice while your wife is also there.
Oh.
Talk about a dad joke.
That is, yeah.
That's
well,
good.
Hey.
I thought you were going to say bring your girlfriend to the drum shop.
I don't know if...
Because that's hit or miss. It depends.
Yeah. Well,
or wife or
I
whoever.
mean, I go clothing shopping, you know, with my wife, so she should come into here.
She should, but a lot of times you just see this glazed look over the girlfriend or wife's face.
Yeah.
And a drummer is just, he's so excited about everything. And so are we. But I just seen it so many times where you could tell that they are not interested in anything. And they're not interested at all.
It's definitely not.
So.
Early on, that's not impressive.
Yeah.
It's not impressive to a girlfriend early on to walk around and point things out at a drum store.
Unless she's a drummer and then she's a keeper.
I was going to say,
Listen,
that's what I was getting at.
The anomalies
we have
exist.
a lot of female drummers. It's, you know, so it goes the other way too, where the husband is just like has no interest in drums and doesn't like them or could care less.
That's what parking lots are for. Just stay out there. Let us do it.
Crack the window.
We've got a nice waiting table. Oh, brother.
Yeah.
This is getting dangerous. I feel like we should move on.
Okay.
So we, if you guys have any segment ideas, or even if you want to throw something in the ring for Crank It Up, Turn It Down that we haven't talked about yet on the show, feel free, leave it in comments on wherever you're watching this or the clips or whatever. And then also we have a Discord community that we started. So there's links to that on our YouTube in the description and on Spotify in the description. Click on that and you can kind of join, and it's a way for our community to get to know each other. We just started, so there's not much out there yet. But you can say where you're from, you know, where you're tuning in from, and then post all your ideas there. That's the quickest way for us to be able to see it and then talk about things you're interested in on the show. But I think it's time we can jump into kind of a deep dive into your story. If that's all right with you.
Sure.
So we'll hop into Between the Plies. All right, welcome back. We are here with Josh Kanusky, drummer extraordinaire and future podcast personality. Pretty soon he'll start his own show.
Present and future.
He'll start his own show. This is going to be the kickoff to his, where he just talks vintage drums.
Oh, boy.
All day long. And we will be guests on your show.
Do you think anyone will want to listen to
I'll
that?
listen to it just for your voice.
All right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love to just get to know your story with the drums. I feel like although we don't replicate each other's, past, every drummer has their own journey. Yeah. It's really important to just learn how each of us got into it and what we've learned along the way. And just talking about things like this is an easy thing for us to talk about because it's about your life. You lived it. But there's always hidden gems of wisdom in everyone's story.
Wow, I hope
whether you've been drumming for a little bit or a long time, there's always something that's like, that's a lesson that's better learned the easy way, listening to a podcast rather than the hard way.
Sure.
But yeah, how'd you start? Paint a picture. What was the age? What was the show? The influence? What started you?
Well, my mom is one of 5 kids, and there's a pretty big age difference she's the oldest, between her and her siblings, and I had a lot of great aunts and uncles, but one uncle in particular played the drums. When I was growing up, he was a teenager, and this was like the late 80s, early 90s, and he played drums with a local band and stuff like that, and everybody talked about how great he was. He was like the guy that everybody wanted. So from a young age, there's like pictures of me, 1-year-old, like sitting on his drum throne, trying to reach the cymbals, like with my dad with me and stuff. And so drumming has always been a thing in my life. I remember some of the earliest memories are with drums. I've had a drum set at my disposal ever since I could walk, essentially. Fast forward a couple more years, like I learned how to play like a basic rock groove. I really wasn't into lessons, but my uncle was like, hey, if you're going to learn how to play, all you need to do is go in the basement, put the radio on, put some headphones on, and just play along to that.
Yeah.
So when most kids in my neighborhood, which there was a lot, luckily, when they were out running around or in a basement somewhere playing video games, I was in my basement by myself playing. From a really young age, that's just something that I wanted to do. I remember in school, teachers would ask, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And my first and only response ever was to be a musician. To be a drummer.
And then they said, "You can't be both. You can't grow up."
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Another dad joke. Okay.
So, the high school years, I met a couple kids and local kids that played music, and I kind of started, like I said earlier, there was this group of kids that were into like harder rock and metal, and then eventually I found another group of friends that were more into like softer like singer-songwriter stuff, and I moonlighted between the two, and then I quickly realized that I don't want to be in a band. I want to be in everybody's band. I don't want to just have one project because I loved playing with different people. I realized very quickly that my growth as a drummer was incredibly faster if I was playing with multiple people as opposed to just playing with one guy down the street, So there was one other drummer who was maybe 2 years younger than me, that everybody wanted to play with. And I was really I remember being pretty heartbroken about that when I was probably 12, 13 years old. And because I'm like, wait, I'm the drummer. I'm the neighborhood guy that plays the drums.
Right, but for whatever reason, he was the go-to.
Yeah, like a bunch of these older cats that were a couple years older, older brothers and stuff, they had a band, and they were calling this guy. And I'm like, well, what does he have that I don't? And I remember them saying to me that this kid just plays the song. He doesn't do anything but just really focuses on the song. And I didn't understand what that meant at the time, but it made me jealous enough to try to improve my own self and my own abilities and my own education to be better so that I was the guy that everybody called.
Yeah, you got the call, right?
Yeah. So then in my early 20s, I started going out to open mics. I was really fortunate. There was a lot of open blues jams where I was from. Blues is a big thing. A lot of really great musicians, guys that were on tour with Sheryl Crow and a bunch of other people. They were already established in their own careers. Yeah. they were all guitar players. And I'd go to these jams and they'd say, all right, play a shuffle. Well, I didn't really know what a shuffle was at that point in my life.
Yeah.
So these guys were like, hey, here's a track that you need to learn. Like, play like this. So even though I never had a formal lesson, I've had a lot of opportunities to be in bands and playing in situations where people were like, hey, I want you to play like this. So the only thing I ever wanted was to be a drummer, and in my eyes, the only way for that to happen was to convince people that what I had was what they wanted,
Right.
So I started quickly realized that like you have to play selfless. You have to serve whatever they want in order for me to get a call back, because that was like my main goal, is to just be working.
That's a lesson. That is such a valuable lesson that I still think of all the time. But may I ask, where did you grow up? Where was this?
I grew up in a town called Emmaus, right outside of Allentown, Pennsylvania. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, man. Like, just to give an analogy, like the music that I was being hired for, they didn't want a Dave Weckl. They wanted, a Jim Keltner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I quickly realized, I'm like, you know what? Like, these guys, Jim Keltner, Ringo Starr, Levon Helm, Steve Jordan, these guys that are like drummers, in my opinion, aren't your drummers.
Right.
Like as far as flashy, they're not a Dave Weckl or a Vinnie Colaiuta.
Yeah. They're
like
make
a
the
working
pocket
man.
feel as good as you can.
Exactly. They're song players,
That's it.
And so I realized, well, maybe that's a direction, that I need to be going in, because I obviously don't play like a Dave Weckl or a Vinnie Colaiuta. So I kind of picked this lane, and ever since I've really tried to be the best at that I possibly can be, and as opposed to trying just to
Be the star of the show.
yeah, be an Instagram drummer,
Yeah.
which there's a time and place for
Yeah,
that.
sure.
But man, I'm telling you, every artist that I've ever been on tour or been in a studio with, if I pulled up that, Instagram drummer thing on their session or their show,
Ain't happening.
yeah, I would have
It's-
never gotten called back.
It's kind of like the old story of Elvis coming in, and his drummer had the Vista lights on stage, and he's like,
Yeah.
get him out of here.
Yeah.
It's not about you. You're not the
Yeah.
star of the show.
Yeah, I love playing music. I get so much out of playing music and being a part of an ensemble, a band, a show. It's so important to me that I will sacrifice my own creativity sometimes, a lot of times, in order just to be in that seat. And there's a point where if you're playing multiple gigs or multiple projects, that's really a nice thing, because if I'm not, like, let's say I'm doing a gig down the street here at a restaurant, I'm just backup music, background music. I'm playing quietly just to give people something to listen to. But then I know in a couple more nights, like, I'll be able to be on another gig where I can kind of let loose a little bit in more of a louder situation. So I save all that stuff for that gig,
Right.
like I think of it that way.
Well, it's a huge thing. It's really important for drummers to have not only self-awareness, but like gig awareness.
Oh yeah.
It's a huge thing that you kind of build up. And starting out, I had zero intuition. There was no reading of the room. It was like, well, this is what we do.
Yeah.
So we're going to go there and do this because this is all I know how to do.
Yeah.
Right? But once you start to develop the skill set or just the awareness of what's going on, analyzing it, and then what works best in this situation and acting upon it, that's when you'd really start to be called back. People want to play with you.
You want to be a working musician, and if work that night is at a local restaurant, and people are paying you to play music, which is like, for me, that's the ultimate. You know what I mean? Like, this is something I'm so passionate about. It's a religion. It's the only religion that I actually give a rat's, about. If someone is willing to pay me to show up and play my instrument and feel absolute joy, the least I could do is follow their rules. If they're not wanting anything loud, that's the least I could do is play quiet. because I want to call back. I want to continue to work for that person. If you had your own business, let's say we were painters and we showed up and the customer asks us to paint these walls white, and we come in here and we're like, you know what? We're pretty, intelligent guys, and we're artistic. So we're going to paint all these walls yellow because we think that that's the way it should be.
Yep.
You're never going to get hired again to do another painting job. And
Absolutely.
I think music is a lot like that, or at least in my opinion.
Well, when you are working with someone, there is a time and place for that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in an original band and you guys are writing songs, then you can say, you know what, this room, if Adam and I were like, hey, let's talk about redoing this, and you're like, I'm going to do this white, I could make that suggestion. Go, you know what, man, it would really look nice with a brick wall here.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's whatever, but there's a time and place where you can make that suggestion, like, hey, after the bridge, why don't we, do this, and then I'll come in with this, But if it's someone else's music, you want to serve that song.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah. And you want to let. Another thing that I've always been conscious of, is instead of me being like, okay, we're in a studio, here's the song that we're about to record. As soon as the guitar player starts strumming, last thing I do is start playing. What I want to do is I want to feel, I want to hear, and experience what that artist is bringing to the table. And that will dictate what I need to be playing, as opposed to being like, I feel this tempo, and then just start playing. Playing what I think should be there and what should be there are two different things.
Yeah.
And as drummers, I think that, man, we are just so excited to play our instrument because it's so much fun.
Absolutely.
And sometimes we just have to take a back seat and then think, okay, I want to serve this person. I want to serve this job. I want to serve this song as best as I possibly can. And just take a step back, take a breath, figure out, what this story is about, what this looks like, even though it's sound. Think about what it looks like, and then and let that dictate to you your contribution, as opposed to just being like, oh man, on the way here I was just listening to Vinnie Colaiuta play with Sting, and whatever the song is, I'm going to play exactly, those kinds of chops. And it's just like, well, that doesn't.
It's awareness, and then it's an incredible amount of listening that can take place.
Oh, absolutely.
If you can't vibe with the song, if you can't feel it, and it's a rehearsal setting, obviously, like in this situation, or someone sends you tracks, or whatever the situation is, a demo. If you're not quite sure, rather than jumping on, I think nowadays we were talking a little bit about like the impatience and with different scenarios, but it's just one of those things. Instead of texting them back right away after you only listen to the demo once through on your opinion, like, I don't think this is going to work, I don't vibe, but listen again.
Let me tell you something. My first audition for like a real big touring group, I almost missed out on it because of that. I won't say the band name, but I made a huge mistake. I almost made a huge mistake, which would have changed the whole trajectory of my career. I got an email to do an audition. I listened to the artist, and I really wasn't blown away by it. And it was something different than what I had envisioned.
Yeah.
And I go to band practice that night. My guitarist is like, "Hey, what's going on with the gig search? How's that going for you?" I said, it's this band. They want to have, I got an email, and I listened to their music, and they want to do an audition. But I'm not going to do it. And my guitar player, he's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "It's just not really my thing." And he's like, "You are an idiot." He's like, "How do you know that? You've never even met these people. You don't know what they're all about. Like, you can't judge it just by going on 3 minutes.
Exactly.
You have to really, you give it a chance. And even if it's not the right situation, you show up. You do your absolute best, because even if that situation doesn't work out, you're going to learn something from that you can take on to the next chapter of your life or the next opportunity. I came really close to not getting an audition or not taking advantage of an audition.
Was it your guitar player and he convinced you to go back and take a second listen then? And then what happened?
Well, he said, his exact words, I won't say any names, but he's like, "You're an idiot. This person plays with this person.
Right.
And if this person gets you, and you're going to get the gig,
Yeah.
and then this person's going to hear you, and they're going to want you for their gig."
It's like seeing
And
the
I was
forest.
just like, "Oh, okay." And that's exactly what happened.
Oh my God.
That's how I got into touring, you know. That's exactly,
Yeah.
thank goodness. And I thank my buddy every time I'm on the
Nice.
road. I'll call him up, be like, "Man, this is all because of you," you know.
Yeah.
Like every time he comes to one of our shows, you know, I always meet him before the show, and I'm like, "Hey, man, you know, like, I wouldn't have had this life
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
the knowledge of, hey, take advantage of that opportunity," you know, because I was so, at that time, all I wanted to do is play like the Allman Brothers, you know,
Yeah.
and this was not the Allman Brothers at the time, you know.
So let's bridge the gap. So we talked about your realization that you need to focus on
Yeah.
the song and like, why is this kid getting gigs over me?
Yeah.
And then you eventually get this opportunity to audition. In between there, how much was it just woodshed?
At that point in my life, I had already done the woodshedding.
Okay.
Because
You were ready.
I was ready, at least as far as my ability at that point in my life.
Right.
Then comes a whole nother thing where it's just like, okay, you have to learn how to be on the road, how to tackle with the ups and downs of being a professional musician. You have to, when you're on the road, if I can describe, I'll try to do it quickly. When you're on the road playing every night, a typical day is you wake up in the morning, you travel for hours, 6 hours some days, to get to the next town. You get there, you load in, you do a sound check, you eat dinner, you do a show, you load the truck back up, and you're off to the hotel for a couple hours, and then you do it all over again. But that hour and a half to 2-3 hours of playing every night, it's just everything. It's what you're working for. It's what you're away from your family for. It's just that enjoyment, that couple hours a night is the goal. But when you come home from that, you're on such a natural high because of these things. And when you come home from that, it's an absolute drag because you're just living this amazing life. But when you get home, you're by yourself.
You're like restless probably.
Yeah,
It's
because all you want to do is get back out and feel that energy and feel that, that good vibration, and so a big thing that took at least 2 years when I first started doing this was learning how to handle the ups and downs. Being on a peak is a lot of fun, but you have to learn how to be in that valley too.
Right.
It's not an easy thing, and it took me a long time to realize, okay, well, getting off a tour when I'm home for a couple weeks, does that mean I'm not a musician anymore? Does that mean I don't have to play or practice or listen? You have to figure out, and that's it was a hard thing for me, to juggle the ups and downs of it. That's probably the hardest thing, and making sure your taxes are paid.
Well, there you go.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Always
so many
hard.
musicians
Yes.
have that problem too,
Absolutely.
I suppose.
Well, is there anything that you found helpful, extremely
Yeah.
helpful with dealing with that?
Yeah.
Just for any other musicians that are going through that or
Yeah,
will?
try to juggle that the best you can. One thing that I learned is when you're on the road, you're an ambassador to yourself, to your family, to your community, to your friends, to your other friends that are musicians. I mean, how many guys do we all know that are just amazing musicians? Guitar players, keyboardists, and a very few of them are making their living as a musician, as a touring musician, as a recording musician. When you're in that role of a professional musician, what we consider a professional musician, I'm not only doing it for myself, I'm doing it for my community. You are an ambassador. because there's so many other guys that are perfectly capable of doing this job, but you're the guy or gal that gets to do it. I used to be a construction worker before I started doing this. After high school, I started doing construction.
Okay.
And for about 10 years, I hated going to work. And then when I ultimately decided that I was done with that and I really wanted to try to get music going, it took a long time. First couple years, I didn't make any money, and I had to move back home with my parents, which was, thank God for them. But it wasn't an easy thing. Being a young adult, living on your own for a while, and then having to move back in, it's a tough thing, but it's the only thing that I could do in order to have a roof over my head. I was essentially homeless, and but thank God for great parents,
Of course.
And so that was a dark time where you're not feeling that great about your own self, but you get through that, and because you go through that dark time, you become better, at what you do, and you have a better appreciation. And I'll be honest, there wasn't a construction site that I passed that I didn't feel fortunate. When you're driving down the highway and there's a bunch of people working on the side of the road,
Sure.
and you're looking out that window and you're like, that's me, that's me. That could be me if I didn't just devote all this time to something that I absolutely love, like willingly. No one's ever forced me to do this kind of stuff. But being humble is something that is really, I think, is really important in doing these kinds of things, because the reason that those people are working are exactly the reason why I'm here.
That's it.
Being able to do what I absolutely love, and
Yeah.
and as much as those people are changing lives for their community as well, what they're building, what their contribution, I really feel that musicians are really relevant too. I think as artistic people, sometimes we stress in our own selves about how we might not feel like good enough, or we have a bad gig, or we have a bad rehearsal, and then the next couple of days you're just down because you're like, man, like I just don't feel good about where I'm at. Just know that those things are normal, and they will eventually, if you keep going, they will persist into getting where you need to be. But just try not to doubt yourself, and if playing music is your calling, and there's no other option, if this is where you're supposed to be, just do it. Do it with an open mind and an open heart, and try to be respectful of everyone you come in contact with. Like that respect thing. You show up to a gig. I've actually listened to Rick say this exact thing.
Yeah.
You show up to a gig, you shake everybody's hand, you
Right.
introduce yourself. Hey, I'm Josh. Thanks so much for having me, because you're essentially coming into their home, their theater, their restaurant, their club, whatever it may be. Like I said, you have to be an ambassador to yourself, to your loved ones, to everyone that made you who you are, and to show that kindness to other folks around you that are the only reason that you're there in the first place, is because you're all working together to make a show happen, or a record or something, whatever the end result is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
I think
awesome.
that there's such a common thread to guys who do it like you do it, like actually take it seriously, and that is the humble factor and the respect factor. That's such a common thread where, I meet a lot of musicians that tour, that play professionally, and that is their business, and they have that same common thread that you do. So it's not by accident. Those are the things that you need to do, because you're dealing with a lot of people. And I never heard the ambassador part, but I'm like, my God, you're right. You're an ambassador for your band, your family, everything.
Yeah.
And that little bit, what Rick said too, about like saying thank you, goes a long way.
I have guys that I grew up with that are just incredible musicians. And for one reason or another, whether it be family or just personal reasons or anything, they could totally be touring musicians or recording artists. But for one reason or another, they didn't choose that path. When I started touring and recording for a living, it was a mission in my head that whenever I show up to a gig, a session, anything, I'm not doing it just for myself. I'm doing it for everyone that I love, all my buddies that don't have this opportunity to do this. It's like, and I remind them often, I got a couple of good buddies that I grew up with that play, and I'll often call them, and, like I do with my buddy that, that helped me realize that this was a good opportunity to have an audition. I'll call them from the road and just say, hey man, I'm trying to do this for both of us, and your contribution to me and my knowledge of music and how we woodshedded together for years, that's what got me to where I'm at.
Yeah, that's a beautiful perspective. And it's so important. I'm glad that we're talking about this, and also that you reach out to them, because negativity and complaining is so loud and so present with everyone, and it's easy to fall into those tracks. But then you hear something like that, and it's so refreshing, and that I don't even need to talk to them. I know that means the world to them.
Yeah. One thing I love about watching you guys and your videos is it's always positive, and the openness about it. I've heard you say, plenty of times about don't hate this, just love the fact that you have this opportunity.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what this is all about. We are given, this is a gift, this, for one reason or another, the reason that we're into music or into drums or collecting, working, anything music related, those interests are a gift. And if we're careless with that gift, what does it get you? It probably won't get you very far, So having a positive attitude with it is it creates a positive feedback. If Absolutely. Someone comes into the shop and you're unkind to them, well, they're not going to want to come back. But the kindness that I see you guys have towards your customers and creates not only a loyal following, but it creates a safe space for everyone that comes into this environment to feel confident automatically feel confident, which is a real, and I've always felt that way, coming into the shop, even at the old location too. It's a good thing.
That's rule number one. This isn't like some exclusive, you have to be up here, or, you have to meet certain criteria. It's like there's a positive energy that you get when you do encourage someone to say, oh no, like someone might be having some issues. I was just talking to a guy about his pedal, and he wasn't sure if it was his pedal or if his technique wasn't quite there. I said, we'll figure it out together, dude.
Yeah.
I'll mess with your pedal, and when you come in, we'll go, show me what you're trying to do. And maybe that's where lessons come in. That's where, the pedal's fine. You just need to work on that a little bit more, and you'll get it.
Yeah.
So it's just encouraging, not like, dude, just practice. What are you doing? It's or there's nothing wrong with your pedal. What's wrong with
Yeah.
You can't say that.
Yeah.
You don't want to say that either.
Yeah. I another quick story, which might not be that quick.
We've got time.
When I was doing construction in my early 20s, I stopped playing for a while, just because it just wasn't. I don't know. I just was not playing, essentially. And I wound up working at a famous drummer's house. Unbeknownst to me, it was I just showed up the one day, and this older couple, we were finishing their basement, and he had a Mike Portnoy T-shirt, Dream Theater drummer, old Dream Theater drummer, original. And I saw the guy, and I thought, well, that's kind of interesting, because how does this guy know who Mike Portnoy is, and why is he listening to Dream Theater?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so after a couple days of working at their house, I went up to him and I said, hey, what's the connection with with this dream theater in you, because he's wearing these shirts every day.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, my daughter's married to their drummer. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, that's incredible. And he's like, yeah, he lives like right a
He
couple
lives in Allentown, right?
Yeah, right outside of Allentown, you know. And he's like, he's on tour right now, but he'll be back in a couple days. Do you want to meet him? I'm like, yeah, I want to meet the, you know.
Yeah.
I grew up Modern Drummer magazine, like he's on the cover.
There
you know
he
what
is.
I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
this guy is like one of the greatest
Absolutely,
drummers
yeah.
of you know, of the generation.
Yep.
And at that time, I wasn't playing. And a couple days later, I come in early in the morning, and there he is with his family, and they're all sitting at Grandma and Grandpa's house, you know, like the house I'm working on. Mm-hmm. And there's Mike Portnoy, and he's like, "Hey, Josh, how's it going? I hear you play drums." And I was just like, "What in the world?" Because I had never met anybody famous before, let alone a famous musician.
Yeah.
And that moment changed my life. He could not have been more nice to me, you know, and encouraging. And he's like, "Hey, on your lunch break, let's go up to my house. I'll show you my studio." Okay, cool, man. And I get up there, and do you know that white and purple Tama kit that he
Absolutely.
had? That was set up in the basement in his studio.
Wow.
And he has tons of other, you know, drums and cymbals and, you know, all of his modern drummer covers and top 100, you know, 100 top drummers in the world. Like, you know, he has those articles just in frames. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so I have to say thank you to, you know, to Mike Portnoy too, because he jump-started me. And I honestly thought in that moment, I'm like, wow, if this guy can do it, like anybody can do this. Not saying that the time and effort and his talents aren't valid, because they absolutely are. But it made me realize that these are just normal people with an extraordinary talent that have been given an extraordinary opportunity. But they're just like everybody else, you know. This is what they do, this is the opportunity, and this is where they went with it, you know. And it made me realize, like, what am I doing? If this is really what I want to do, I should be focusing on that, you know. Set a goal and make that happen for yourself, you know. Yeah,
That's awesome, man.
yeah.
That's so cool.
I'm so glad you shared that story. I mean, we spent so many I've seen all of his drumming DVDs.
Oh, me too.
And everything else, especially at the shop, just playing all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, new Mike Portnoy DVD. Break it out, throw it in. We tried to get him for a clinic.
Oh, really?
Too, yeah. But you know, when you do that, you can't, like, because I knew he was as close as he is. He's in Allentown. He can just pop on down.
Yeah.
But when you are endorsed
Yeah.
and things like that, you can't just do that. Like, you have to go through the companies. They have to make the deals. You have to, you know, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot more involved than just saying, hey, come on down. Not that we haven't done that with guys.
Yeah.
Like, but with that level, that's like next level stuff.
Oh, he's definitely a sweetheart of a guy. It's funny because years after that, I saw him in grocery store, because I used to live up that way. And I'd see him in the grocery store, and I'd say to my wife, "You see that guy? That guy's like a really, really famous drummer.
He's a rock star."
Yeah, and she's like, "Well, why don't you go talk to him?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "No, that's okay."
Right.
I recently just did a record. I was up in the studio, and the engineer is also a drummer and a producer. We were talking, and I told him this Mike Portnoy story. He's like, "That's crazy." He's like, "I teach at this drum shop up in Bethlehem, California drum shop," and he's like, I had his son, Max, I think his name is. He's like, "I've been teaching Max since he was a little boy. I'm his drum instructor."
Wow.
And he's like, "I'm going to tell Mike, the next time I see him, I'm going to tell him your story." And I'm like, "Well, tell him thanks, you know, like, thanks for, like, being such a wonderful human, you know, and turning me on to wanting to do this more too, you know."
Now, when he took you to his drum room, did you play?
I did not.
Okay.
No.
Because that would be something too. Like, I'm like, I would want to, just because, like, I just, like, but what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my wrist has been acting up lately.
Did he play, or he just showed you his?
No, it was like as big as a house, like this basement. It was fully, you know, there was multiple rooms of drums.
Like, can I go boom boom bap on your big monster Octoplus drum set, please?
Yeah.
No, I prefer a double pedal. These 2 kick drums, I won't embarrass myself.
Yeah, he couldn't have been cooler, man.
I think one of my favorite times seeing it, like, because, you know, he's so synonymous with, like, all of the drums and progressive music and everything else like that. on I think his first DVD, Liquid Drum
Theater, maybe?
Liquid
Something
Drum
like-
Theater, I think
yeah,
it was.
something like that.
Experiment,
Yes,
maybe.
Experiment. Yeah,
Is that what it was?
yeah.
Liquid Drum Experiment. Okay.
Yeah.
He plays like the bass. His rack tom is a timbali, and he has a hang-in mounted floor tom. And he plays this little set, and he's going over some really cool stuff. Some things that like I still like the double between the eighth note kind of
Yeah.
thing, like almost sounded like double bass. I still do.
Yeah.
Today. I think that was my favorite time seeing him play. Is like playing that little set.
Yeah.
It's like it's so cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah, he's a good dude. That's what got me back into, wanting to be a musician. It's like just meeting him and being like, wow, there's actually people out here that they're not just like hero,
Nope.
they're not superheroes, they're not cartoons, they're actually real
And
humans.
he didn't have an attitude now. It goes back to that. He's humble.
Oh yeah, he was totally cool.
Sure, he has all his awards up everywhere.
Yeah.
And you're just like, interesting. So he's still buying whole milk, huh? Yeah.
He does his own grocery shopping.
Interesting.
He doesn't
Yeah.
have someone tie his shoes in the morning for him.
Exactly.
Yeah, I maybe I should have gone up to him, but that's just not really who I am.
Yeah.
But I
gotta do
definitely
you.
would see him, and I'm just like, that's that guy.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
All right, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about your drums.
Okay, cool.
Let's talk about drums.
Which one do you want to know about?
This is the problem.
Yeah.
You have a lot of drums. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. It's a
Not
very
for
good
me,
thing.
it's not.
No. It's not. It's okay by us.
Yeah.
No, but I talked to Christy. She taught yesterday.
Okay.
And I mentioned that you were coming on, and she told me that it's always a joy playing with you, but she said she had a gig with you and you were bringing the kit, and she's like, I text him just to be like, hey, what should I bring? And he's like, nah, I got you covered or whatever, and sends me pictures and says, which one?
Yeah.
And she had, it was like all these options, and then or which kit do you want to play, and then she picked one. You're like, all right, which sizes? And he's like, do you want to play the 22 bass drum or the 20? I have the matching, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And a 12 rack, 13, a 10, what do you want? Like,
Yeah.
what a guy.
Well,
what a guy. I mean, that's the dream.
I forget what gig it was on, but I was playing in a band at Zootropolis in Lancaster here. And it was a co-bill. It was the artist that I was working with and then an artist that she was working with. I forget. I'm terrible at band names.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm pretty hesitant to like share my drums. It's a part of me. These are things that I've had for a long time, and I just don't want to bash her, But the guy I was working for, he's like, don't worry, this other band is real legit. Like, you don't have to worry about, okay, cool. So I said, hey, just give their drummer my number and have them call me, because I want to make sure that they have what they want, And sure enough, she called, and I said, I showed her a bunch of pictures, and I'm like, listen, you just tell me out of all this stuff what you want me to bring, because I can play it all. I love playing it all,
Mm-hmm.
And you choose whatever you want out of my arsenal of what I have, and then she's like, oh, I really like this one, and she's like, wait a second. She's like, is that pink champagne? Champagne sparkle. I'm like, yeah. She goes, oh, I want that one. It's gonna match my dress. I'm like, all right, nice. You got
Perfect.
it. Yeah, it worked out pretty well.
What was it? Pink champagne. What was it?
I think that might have been a 2012, 14, like a 19. That's a 1967 Ludwig.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's a great sounding kit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started when I was, I bet 22 years old. A guy that I knew in high school called me. I never had. I didn't come from money. Like I grew up in like a really middle to lower class, working class family, and we worked hard for what we had. And a couple years after high school, I got a call from a guy I went to high school with, and he's like, "Hey, we're clearing out my grandmother's house, and she's got this drum set. Do you want it? Give me $50 for it."
Okay.
And I was like, I'll be right there. So I
All right.
hopped in my van, went over to that house across the street, in town there. And it was like a mid-70s blue Vista Light, concert toms, like all different sizes. And I was like, wow, well, here you go. And it came with all the hardware and a bunch of old Zildjian cymbals.
Is that what
Yeah.
started the
Yeah.
collecting?
So that night, I took everything apart, cleaned every little
Yeah.
piece, put it all back together, got all new heads. I kept the cymbals for a long time. I still have a couple of the cymbals. And I sold the drum set. I was like, I'm probably not going to want a Vistalite, it's not my thing. I sold the Vistalite. And then I bought another kit, which was like a 68 Champagne Sparkle. And then I bought a bunch more. I sold a bunch more, and it's always been. I absolutely. Not only do I love these drums, taking them apart. I love buying an entire drum set of like, hey, my grandpa's got this. Okay, I'll be right over. I'll buy it sight unseen, because more or less there's going to be something in that drum set that I absolutely fall in love with. Whether it's a little drum key, or a little note with all the songs from a gig or something like that, or little tools that a guy 50 years ago was using on his drums. It's old drum heads, just seeing scribbles written on the drum heads. Or I just got a drum this past year, and I opened it up. It was like a mid-50s WFL White Marine Pearl tom, 13 by 9, I guess that would be. And I opened it up, and there was a note written in the inside of this drum. It was the kid's name. It said 1957 Christmas present, and it had his address. It was like right in Reading.
Amazing.
And I thought, man, someone took the time to open up this drum before Christmas morning, wrote this little thing in it, and then put it back together. And this thing, it still had the original heads on it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this thing has not been seen, in 50 plus years. And
That's amazing. Drums have stories, man. They all carry their own story with them.
I just bought, my most recent purchase was I cruise around on Marketplace all the time, multiple times a day, just to find drums, old drums. And
you're the one taking all the good deals.
He's the guy stealing all the
heck.
If you want to come over, we'll enjoy them together.
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw this guy was selling. He thought it was an '80s Premier, but I knew right away it wasn't '80s era. And I called him up. I said, "Listen, I'll take it. I'll be right over to get it." Okay, cool. I go pick it up. It's this beautiful mid-50s Premier kit, an absolute like gorgeous showroom like condition, matching hardware, period correct, and a set of old Zildjian A cymbals from the mid-50s. And I looked at them, and I was just like, "Yeah, man, I'll take it." Gave him the cash. I took it home. I immediately like started taking it all apart, cleaning everything, and it had calfskin heads on it. And it's just an absolute monster of a beauty. And I just played that up at the Beacon Theater in New York City last weekend.
That truly is one of my favorite things about this job. And, I do a lot of things around here, but I love to get new used gear in. Yeah. And I've been doing it for so long that like I can evaluate things pretty quickly as well. And I always call it the diamond in the rough. Like, okay, this might be like a CB set. Oh, but there's a Zildjian, Zildjian there that makes it all the worthwhile here. Absolutely. Okay, Yeah. So I love doing that. And just recently we got that Ludwig Black Oyster Pearl from 1970 in, and it came in, and it was dirty, but it was still in good shape. But I couldn't wait to get this thing apart because I knew it was going to shine up real nice and clean up. Yep. But I got so sidetracked with like work and orders and price updating and merchandise, everything else, and I just had to set that thing aside. But I just couldn't wait to get that thing all together because the final project is that sitting there and it's beautiful and it's all together and it had all the correct hardware with it. It was just like I couldn't wait to just get that thing. Yeah, man.
I love that kind of stuff. Just opening up a bass drum and having it like a blanket or the smell of it. I have that first Vistalite drum kit that I had bought. There was a quilt in there that someone had made. And I still have that quilt. It was my daughter's baby blanket that we used for her. It's like, I still have it. It's still in our house, 20-some years ago,
Yeah, sometimes we'll find some real gnarly stuff in the bass room, like an old damp pillow. There's some funny stuff.
One of my favorite cymbals that I own, it's like a probably late 50s, maybe early 60s. It's a Zildjian A 18 Crash I bought from you guys at your old location. Mm-hmm. I remember like walking in and I was always scalping like because you guys always have your used stuff at an amazing price. I always I love coming in here to see your cymbal collection because it's just like every cymbal is, if I love it, I know I'll get it, And my favorite Crash cymbal I own is like a late 50s. And I think it may have been sitting in the window with like the kit, that the old kit, Leedy's or whatever it may be, in the window. And I think I talked to you and I'm like, hey Shawn, is this cymbal for sale? And you're like, nah, it's for display. And I'm like, damn, because if it was, I'd definitely buy it today, because it's just like an amazing,
dude. That's all you need to
it's
say.
an amazing sounding cymbal. And then you're like, well, I think it might have been Rick's. You're like, let me go check. And I think you talked to Rick, and Rick's like $100. And you came back and you're like $100. I'm like, all day long.
Right.
Oh my God, I love that cymbal. It's the best sounding crash cymbal I've ever heard.
I remember this, and it's funny because he had a couple of display kits around that weren't for sale. Eventually, I mean, everything has a price. Everybody has a price. But I remember you asking me that, and I'm like, well, I don't want to just sell this thing. And then he's like, hey, what the heck? So I wanted to check, and I said, dude, I want to hook this guy up. Guy. I love this guy. He's super cool. He's the guy that rents the hardware. I probably say it all the time. You're wondering what happened to the hardware. So who rents? I remember him asking me, who rents just the hardware? I was like, this guy's on tour.
Yeah.
So he's scratching his head. I'm like, don't worry, it's fine, because he would get nervous. When the set would go out for a long time.
Oh, I bet.
Because we're used to renting for a festival here, just
Or
that
a
kind of
gig.
thing. This thing is gone. This thing's they went to California, to Nevada, to all the way around. So he would get nervous. I'm like, dude, this guy is a sweetheart. He's the nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. He's totally cool. So I remember going to him. It's like, I want to sell this cymbal to this guy. I want to hook this guy up. He wants it. He's like, do it. So, okay.
I love that cymbal.
Cool.
That cymbal. So when I went before a gig, I'll think to myself, okay, what does the room look like? What does it sound like? What kind of music are we playing? That cymbal always comes.
Nice.
It's always the cymbal that comes with me. No matter what else is with it, that's the cymbal. I can use it for a ride. It's a great crash. It's on every recording. If you've ever hear a recording of me in the past, 5 years maybe?
Yeah, probably. What year is it? 23? Yeah, that could have been.
That cymbal is on that recording.
That's freaking cool. I'm so glad. That makes me happy.
Oh, man, me too. Every time I look at it makes me happy.
Well, you mentioned your daughter. Are there any feelings towards the drums yet?
Oh, totally.
Okay.
Every morning we start the day, we'll wake up. I'll do breakfast. I usually cook breakfast for the family, and then her and I, more than less, every day we'll go up to the studio, and I'll get behind the drums, and she has a microphone I'll plug into the PA.
Oh, yeah.
And we put the radio on, and she sings and dances, and I'll play along a little bit, just keep my chops going a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she loves playing. She loves everything music. She's 3.5. We'll just be sitting anywhere, and she'll start singing Beatles songs. I want to hold your hand. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, where'd you hear that song? She's like, come on, Dad, it's the Beatles. I'm like,
what?
Okay.
What?
I'm not even kidding.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she's got some good taste in music.
That's very cool. I'm sure you and your wife had nothing to do with that. So.
We listen to music all the time. Music is always playing in our house.
That's great.
From when we wake up to when we go to bed, there's music on. Anything Aretha Franklin or Ray Charles, the Beatles, 80s pop music, anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're always listening to music.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything, I like to ask this, is there anything we didn't talk about today as far as industry stuff, gear stuff? We could talk all day long, I know, but is there anything that he mentioned, Shawn, that you caught on to?
There was something. Now, just recently you had ended. We didn't talk about you ending your stint with
the David Bromberg.
David Bromberg.
Yeah.
How long have you played with him?
I've been with him since just about 2010, 11.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, is he not playing anymore? Is that what's going on?
He retired.
Okay.
So yeah, we've done, over 10 years of touring together. And, usually a year of touring would be us being out probably at least anywhere between 100 or 80 or 120 dates a year, depending on, obviously on the year or whatever. We've done 3 studio records together, traveled all over the world, and yeah.
Because I had seen that you would put something out, I follow you on Instagram, and you were well, I'm gonna have some free time on my hand. So, and I know you're pretty handy, you know, because I've seen you fixing up your house and doing different things. So I'm like, wow, this guy is freaking crazy talented, man.
Thanks.
It's
man.
freaking awesome.
Yeah, man. I've always would rather be playing music than anything else, obviously. But another thing, I tell you what, man. We're talking about professional musicians.
Mm-hmm.
I know so many professional musicians that when they're done with a tour, they go right back to a day job. And it just because you have to do that doesn't mean that you're any less of a musician.
Oh, absolutely.
That's one thing that I struggled with in the beginning, was like a self-identity. Just because you play some gigs, does that mean you're a musician? And then once you are playing gigs and that's your income, for your livelihood, you play tricks on yourself. You doubt yourself. Am I a musician? What makes a musician? Okay, well, like, am I worthy of calling?
All those questions.
Am I worthy enough of calling myself a musician?
Yeah.
And the short answer is yes. If that's what you want to do, then just do it.
Yeah.
Like, if that's what your calling is, then might as well. And even if you're not making your living as a musician, call yourself a musician anyway. If that's what makes you happy,
just say it until it actually happens.
Yeah, because most times when people are like, "Oh, hi, Josh. Like, what do you do for a living?" I don't even want to tell them because, like, I don't know. I'm not one to
People
boast.
have a stigma too about that.
Oh, absolutely. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Right.
Well, that just doesn't exist in my world.
Right.
And how boring it is on. If someone outside was looking in to see how boring my life actually is on the road, they'd be like, well, what the hell? It's none of the above.
Not what I expected.
Yeah, man. You're in a van with a bunch of dudes for the majority of a day, and you get out of the van for a couple hours to play some music, and then you're back in that van or bus or airplane or wherever.
Yeah, we were talking to Tom Wiersbicky last week, and he mentioned that too. Where
Carl.
His cousin's name is Tom.
Cousin's name Tom.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah.
He's also a drummer too. Big shout out to him. So yeah, Tom, So Carl Wiersbicky. Anyway, he had mentioned that during their he had been on a few tours too, and one was like a do-it-yourself type of tour, and they would do the whole like staying with somebody, and like he said quickly tough. They're like, no, we can't do this because they just want to party, and they're like, they're tired, they want to sleep and get to the next show, to the point where they lied and said, we should really hit the road here, and they just got in their van, parked around the corner, and went to sleep. That that is the life on the road. I would be the same way. I'm like, I can't burn the candle at both ends.
No, you totally can't. Your job is way too important to be drinking beer at night or wherever you're, drinking alcohol, and then waking up with a hangover, and you're in a van for 6 hours. It's just like, well, that doesn't feel good. You quickly realize that stuff, is just not conducive to that, kind of lifestyle, on the road. Because, man, essentially what I do is I have a laptop or an iPad, and I'm watching YouTube or Netflix all day long. You know what I mean? Like watching drum videos or something. And then it's just like, okay, we're at the gig. Whew, thank goodness.
Right.
Let's have some fun. But yeah, I mean,
people have a different misconception of what touring is, what being a musician is.
Yeah.
And it's actually really this.
Yeah.
It's really this. It's just being humble. Yeah. It's being responsible and serving the song and playing your craft and networking.
Networking
because
is
that
huge.
is it. Like, if you're a jerk, networking isn't going to work out for you. You wouldn't have got those other gigs.
Absolutely. And too is, okay, like let's say you do a tour with an artist or a band or something like that. Well, that tour is going to end. And at the end of that tour, you might not get a call back because that artist might say, hey, I want to go a different direction. I want to have a different sound. I'm going to have a completely different band.
Right.
Well, what about me? I thought I was your guy, So there's a lot of ups and downs that way. But if you try to network, a really great thing is, as drummers, we don't get to hang out with a lot of other drummers on a regular basis. There's rarely ever two drummers or more drummers on a gig. There's always a couple guitar players or a keyboard player, and you have that. But you really never are on many gigs with another drummer. So it's great to network with other drummers, be friends with other drummers, get advice and learn, teach other drummers and stuff like that. But what I've really had success would be if you have a friend or are friends with bass players, man. Bass players are where it's at.
That's
like
it.
If you want to put your money on something, get to know your bass player and get to know other bands' bass players, because every good bass player wants to play with a good drummer.
Yeah.
And every good drummer wants to play with a bass player. And when their band is needing a drummer, the first person they ask is going to be the bass player.
Sure.
Hey man, or hey gal, do you know any good drummers? And that bass player is, because that's everything.
Yeah, and you want your name to be mentioned.
Oh, absolutely. I want it to be mentioned first.
Yeah. Not the kid down the street. Are you still in contact with that kid? Do you know where he is?
I just recently, I didn't ever know the kid very well, but a really close friend of mine is friends with him. And I actually, just about a week ago, saw my buddy. And I said, hey, man, do you know so-and-so? Is he still playing drums? Oh, yeah, he's actually playing with the guys we grew up with right now. And I'm thinking, good for him, man. Because, like,
it's awesome.
If I didn't have that that sense of
lighting the fire under your butt.
Yeah, man, I needed that. I always need that, because I'm not much of a self-propeller.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take much for me to want to be better than the next guy, because it's like I need that. I won't talk about it, but I definitely need that inside me.
Yeah, sometimes you need that little bit of a push.
Yeah.
And you got to turn a negative into a positive.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's what you guys preach all the time.
That's it, man.
Turning negatives into positive. That's what it's all about. Yeah, man. Just being friendly, Because when you're on the road, or you're in a studio situation, or any situation, musically or unmusically, like, you don't want to be around a guy that's an a-hole.
Yeah.
You don't want to be around a guy that's a jerk, or that, like, you're in a van for 5 hours a day with these folks.
Right.
The last thing you want is someone to be, not cool.
Yeah.
So even beyond playing, there's a million guys that can and gals that can play well, but can they hang? That's a really important thing. You have to be able to hang, and maybe that's where I'm at.
That is it. It kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, where you're like, he just plays the song.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have to think about that too. If I'm like, man, this guy's got some chops, so I got to break out my chops. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Because the guys in your band, or like you want to impress them. Like, I just started playing with a new band.
Oh, yeah.
And back to what you were saying about starting your day with drums is the best thing you can do.
It's awesome.
Because I'm like, I started waking up. I'm like, I got to learn these songs. I want to, and I can't practice at night, really.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I woke up and I felt so good coming in after I'd played, and I'm like, I'm getting these songs, I'm feeling good. Like, it's such a good confidence booster. But then I'm like, it's not about the chops either.
Yeah.
Like, they care about, am I hitting all the right parts, really?
Yeah.
Am I stopping and starting, like, am I setting a good groove or good tempo?
That's it.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah. The last thing you want is to be on stage working for an artist, and you see a drummer in the audience or side stage, and you're like, yeah. You give them that look, and then you're just like, and then you want to just play all your little licks.
Yeah.
And then you're feeling cool about it.
Yeah.
Because that other drummer's like, giving you that look.
Yeah.
And then that band leader turns around and gives you like a, what in the world are you thinking?
Yeah.
It puts you back in your place real quick. Because that band leader doesn't hire me to impress that other guy, that one guy in the audience.
Exactly, yeah.
He wants me to serve him.
That's right.
So that's where I need to be, and that's where I've kind of made my, career so far with artists,
That's it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
in the meantime, you get to have a really cool thing.
Yeah.
You get to do this kind of stuff.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it, man. Well, I appreciate your perspective. Thanks for sharing and coming and hanging out with us.
It's been an absolute pleasure being here and talking
we're
with
just
you
gonna
guys.
keep doing these. So as often we need to ask people, or how often it's okay to have the same guest on, because we need to just like talk about start your day with drums. Let's all play drums and then come here before the shop opens and just chat about drums before we start. It's awesome.
There's a lot more I haven't told you about.
Exactly.
Dude, that's what I'm saying. Let's cut it off here so we can just do like next episode,
We can just do a deep dive of like this tour or that, like because we're just scratching the surface.
You tell me what artists you really dig, and I'll tell you my story about them.
See, that's it.
That's it.
Just I'm sure you have the Levon Helm. We could do a live podcast from the studio.
Dude, we could go up there and
we can make that
and
happen.
document the whole freaking thing.
We could totally
is
do
like
that.
my dream.
I know a lot of good folks up there.
Awesome.
Yeah, man. We'll have Levon's grandson. Levon's daughter Amy has a son. His name is Lee. And he's a great drummer. I bet you he's probably 14 or 15 years old.
Okay.
We're buddies on Instagram and stuff. Killer drummer. We'll get him on it too, man, because he's got some cool stories.
14-year-old killer drummer. I don't want to meet him.
Oh, he's cool, man.
That's
awesome.
That would be great. But we got to save some for later.
All right.
We got to save some. So let's put a pin in that. But thank you, anyone who's still with us, listening in on this episode of Drum Key. As always, support your local drum shops. That is so important. If you don't have one, we'll adopt you, of course. We're willing to do that, take on a couple more drummers. But I believe that's going to be the show. Thanks for joining us.